Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Friday, everybody. It's almost a weekend. It's almost Christmas. Christmas is 6 days away. Can't believe that this year has flown by that quickly already. But we have a mailbag today, Brian. Friday Free-For-All Mailbag, now that it is Notre Dame's offseason. And if this does happen to be your first ever mailbag, because we get new listeners each week, which is fantastic, be sure to keep spreading the word. Share this podcast with your friends and family like we talk about all the time. But if this does happen to be your first mailbag, you can put an MB for mailbag or a mailbox emoji. Lets us know to set your question aside. Then, as always, if you want your question bumped up to the top, you can always feel free to put in a super chat as well. But a lot of good questions in there today. We're sitting around 34, 35 right now. So a lot of awesome questions to get to today so far, Brian.
Yes, a lot of great questions. Looking forward to getting into it. A lot of good stuff today. Just to give people a little bit of a heads up. So Monday will be the 22nd. We will have a show on Monday. It'll be Trevor and Sean Davis. Trevor and I will do a show on Tuesday, and then we're going to take Christmas Eve, Christmas off, and the day after Christmas off. I will publish a couple videos that are just kind of me giving my thoughts on some topics, but we won't be having live shows. We're going to take, because then that'll give us obviously the weekend off, and I want my team to be able to spend time with family around Christmas, and I would like to do the same thing. So just to give people a heads up, we will be Monday, Tuesday will be our last shows till the following Monday. So just want to give people heads up on that. So like I said, I'll be putting some videos out, but we won't be doing live shows for those days. But doesn't mean that we won't have a lot going on the site, on the message boards. And as I said, I'll be putting some other videos out, but I am very much looking forward to today's mailbag, Trevor. And we got a lot of questions in already, so let's go ahead and dive right in. Are you ready to rock and roll?
Always.
Let's do it.
From Aiden Benami, we want all of our players back, but if you had to pick one player on offense, not CJ Carr, and one on defense who cannot transfer and have to stay, who are they?
Defensively is easy. It's Leonard Moore.
Yeah.
Well, it's easy who the number one guy is. It's not easy to only pick one guy. Because, I mean, I'd want to have Boubacar in that conversation, Drake Bowen, Kingston, Josh Burnham, Tay Johnson, Adon Schuler, Jaden Alsbury. You know, I mean, like the list is pretty long of guys that I would not want to see leave Notre Dame. But, I mean, it's hard not to go with the best cornerback in college football. So, offensively, if I can only bring back one guy that can't transfer, boy, and it's not CJ, Gerby Lambert probably be the one. Again, that's not an easy one either. I mean, I'd want to go with Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison, Anthony Knapp, Will Black. I mean, there's a long list of guys, but if I can only go one, that would be who I would go with. Iden, what say you, Trev?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said, but in the spirit of just giving a different answer, on defense, I'll go Boubacar Traore, just because look, having a premier pass rusher sets a lot of teams apart. I mean, look at some of the teams in the playoffs with who they have rushing off the edge. And I'm not saying that they have a replacement for Leonard Moore at corner, but I have seen Mike Mickens develop younger cornerbacks into they can step into that role.
And it's easier to play corner when the quarterback's laying on his back.
Yeah. Yeah. So for defense, I'll go Boubacar Traore. And then offense, I'll go a little bit off the beaten path. I'm going to go Cam Williams, because if he's around for his junior year, I think that just forces the hand of the coaching staff to hey, I'm 6'2", I'm 200 pounds. I can absolutely fly. I'm a physical specimen. Use me. And if he ends up, and I don't think that he will, but if he ends up leaving, because who knows with this crazy offseason, if he ends up leaving, I think that kind of gives the coaching staff an out of not being able to use him. So I would love to see him stay. Those are my two.
Dig it.
From Adam Garcia, is there any insider thoughts on the meeting Pete Bavacqua had with the ACC commissioner, Jim Phillips?
I don't want to read too much into it because we weren't really given any information other than they met and they had good conversations. That's all we have from an ACC reporter, someone who's been very pro ACC, and Andrea Adelson, who's had some snide remarks to make about Notre Dame. So my thought is she's absolutely giving you what the ACC people told you. I don't want to say a whole lot beyond that other than just, Trev, I'm very nervous, and I've said this before, I'm very nervous that at the end of this is only going to come down to the ACC says are bad and Notre Dame takes it. That's my big fear. Now, I have no evidence to support that that's what they're going to do other than just that's kind of what it's always been for Notre Dame. At the end of the day, they say things and, oh, we're not happy about this, and then they just kind of give in. And that's what was so refreshing about the Jack Swarbrick tenure and why I never understood why so many Notre Dame fans were against Jack Swarbrick, because he was like the biggest fighter for Notre Dame's independence and Notre Dame's leverage and power in college football. But I have no evidence that Pete Bavacqua's one way or the other. We're going to learn who he is through this. So I don't want to say too much about it other than just we got the ACC side. Oh, it went well. I don't trust a thing that comes out of ACC people. So I'm in wait and see mode. I don't care about words, I care about actions. If there's no actions, then Notre Dame's just the whiny, spoiled little brat who didn't get their way. That's all it is. If all you did was complain and nothing comes out of it, then that's all it was. Just whine. I want to see something come of this. And what will that be? I don't know. We'll find out.
I echo the same sentiment. I have my concerns. I'll chair those until we hear a little bit more and the situation unfolds a little bit, but I agree with everything that you said. From Coleman Smith, how do you feel about having Jagasaw and Lambert as the tackles?
My preference would not for that not to be the case. I think with Jagasaw, with Lambert, with Anthony Knapp, and with Will Black, among those three, I think you can get two pretty darn good tackles. And I would really like to see Jagasaw stay inside. I have no problem with Jagasaw staying inside at guard. I would love to see him and Gerby Lambert side by side. As I've said before, my ideal offensive line for next year, if everybody comes back, again, I don't expect Ashton Craig to be ready to start the season just because of the timing of the knee injury. Maybe he is ready, but if everybody comes back that I want to come back, the starting offensive line is left to right is left tackle, Will Black, left guard. And you could flip Black and Black and Lambert in the situation, but left tackle, Will Black, left guard, Billy Schrouth, center, Anthony Knapp, right guard, Charles Jagasaw, right tackle, Gerby Lambert. Could you imagine having Knapp, Jagasaw, and Lambert side by side in the run game?
I mean, we would start talking about, we talk about all the time on this show about, could you imagine insert any running back post 2017 behind the 2017 offensive line? I think that combination would be the closest we would see to it in the run game. That's for sure. That'd be absolutely disgusting. From Tavis McKay, could this be the hardest offseason emotionally for Notre Dame fans this century? Playoff snub discussion, ACC turmoil, new rev share limitations, et cetera, et cetera.
This century, so we're talking since 2000. No, it's in the top 5 perhaps, but we've think about what we've seen in the off seasons, right? We saw after 2001, Notre Dame in the offseason hired George O'Leary only to have to fire him because of a discrepancy and turn to Ty Willingham. That was a pretty chaotic offseason. We saw an offseason where, just even recently with things that have happened in college football and some of the changes and how it's impacted Notre Dame. But it's in my top 5. It's probably top 2 or 3. It's definitely in there. But the reason that I can't put it number 1 is because there's still, these things all are true and they all suck. The playoff snub is terrible. The ACC stuff, the rev share, just some of the things that I'm hearing about, how Notre Dame's going about retaining their own roster and some puzzling decisions that they're making in the portal of guys they're going after. It's been a not fun offseason for me. But at the same time, this is still a really good place to be for Notre Dame because there is a lot of resources in the program. You do have, as of right now, a really strong coaching staff in place. You do, as of right now, have a pretty talented roster in place. And, there's a lot of good, too. I know we're focusing on the bad because it's the more recent thing, but there's also a lot of really good things. I mean, Notre Dame just had a Heisman finalist. Notre Dame just has won 10 games in a row. It's been a long time since we've experienced Notre Dame losing a game on the field. I mean, we always talk about how, you're going to always end your season with a loss. If you're in this year they're ending the season with a win. So there's also a lot of good things going on around the program, Tavis, but I understand why this feeling exists, because it's just been kind of like one gut punch after another. And it's okay to accept those and embrace those and talk about those. And there's certainly a lot of that going on. And I'll talk about those things too. But there's also, the reason I can't say it's the hardest is because there's also a lot of good things too. I mean, there's a lot of good. Notre Dame's going to have one of the best quarterbacks of college football next year. I mean, they're going to have a pretty talented football team next year and another shot to compete. So I'm going to try to focus on those things as much as I can, but I definitely understand where you're coming from. I do.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I think the 2012 offseason takes the cake for me. And the last time we got to see Notre Dame play was in the national championship. They got the doors blown off of them. Then Everett Golson gets suspended in the offseason after talking about, I was having similar conversations with my friends that we're having right now about CJ Carr. It's like, hey, Notre Dame's going to have one of the better quarterbacks in the country coming back. I was saying that about Ev back in 2012. And then he gets suspended. And so that offseason was really, really rough. Really rough.
Yep. All right, let's go. I'm trying to go through and get new questions from new people before I go back and get the repeats, because there's some really good ones. But I always feel like we leave people out at the end because we answer the people that get in here first. When I want to reward those people, but I want to try to get to some more people, so I'm going to work through those best I can.
From Domer Grizz, how badly would you prefer to have a Notre Dame playoff game to preview rather than drudging through endless paranoia about losses to the portal and a coaching carousel? It's too early for all that.
Agree. Domer Grizz, agree. It's been, it's been frustrating. Yeah. We should be talking about the big game tonight. I mean, Trev, you and I should be like, hey, we're going to get done with this show here around 4:00, and then we're heading over to Notre Dame for our tailgate, or we're not doing a show today because we're tailgating all day. That's what we should be dealing with right now. But unfortunately, in some ways that got taken away from Notre Dame, and in other ways, Notre Dame kind of did some things that put themselves in that situation.
Yeah.
And so, it's it's been frustrating.
Sure has. Johnny from the boot, who's your biggest dark horse that has a chance to win the playoffs?
Well, I guess what would you consider a dark horse? Let's just set some terms here for what we would consider a dark horse. Below what seed?
I would say below the 5th seed. Like the 5th seed has a favorable path, and I can't consider any team that got a bye a dark horse in this playoff format. Like last year, Boise State got a bye, but they would have been a dark horse to win it type of thing. But for this playoff, I would say no team from the top 4 or Oregon.
That's an easy one then for me. It would be, because if you were to say like top 4, then I'd say Oregon. But if you're going to say outside top 5, which I agree with that, I would say the winner of the Miami-Texas A&M game tomorrow. That's who I think. I don't think Oklahoma, Alabama, neither of them have a good enough offense to win 4 games. I don't think that Ole Miss has the coaching, and they were never going to win 4 games, even if Lane Kiffin was there. They just don't have that kind of team this year, in my opinion. So I think the winner of the Texas A&M Miami game is the dark horse that has the best chance to win it all.
Agreed. I was going to go with Texas A&M. As long as they don't let the off-the-field distraction of Colin Klein going back to Kansas State distract them from the task at hand, I like how they're put together. Like they're a team in the SEC that I do wish got more coverage. Everybody's talking about Bama and Texas and Vandy and Diego Pavia and Kirby Smart's doing his thing down in Athens. Like, hey, man, Mike Elko's 11-1 this year. He has his team hosting a home playoff game tomorrow. So my dark horse is Texas A&M. James Mertz, in recruiting offensive linemen, what do you look for that separates someone having the potential for a tackle versus a guard? It's a good question.
Well, there's a lot of different things. I prefer more length for a tackle. That's the one thing that has allowed Anthony Knapp to be good at tackle, as good as he has been at tackle. Is he's not the tallest guy, he's not the biggest guy, but he's strong and he's got very long arms. A big thing that I look for that he doesn't necessarily have is someone who's comfortable in space. That means someone who plays, knows how to play with good angles, someone who knows how to kind of make reads. It's kind of like you think about a great defender in basketball, a great guard defender in basketball, right? Like it's you've got to have great anticipation. You've got to have the foot quickness and change of direction to be able to go and slide and beat guys to spots and play with angles and use your hands and all those type of things. And that's a lot of like what playing offensive tackle is. You've got to be someone who's comfortable in space. I've seen 6'5" guys with 34-inch arms that are athletic and all that just can't play tackle because they're just not comfortable in space. And and you obviously need someone that's got some lower body power to them that can anchor against power rushes, can anchor against stronger players. That's something that really hurt Notre Dame against Miami, because Miami's defensive ends are big, thick, strong guys, and they just bullied the Notre Dame tackles in that game. And when you say, well, if you're going to struggle at tackle, then how are you going to be good at guard? At guard, you're not going to retreat as much. You can anchor more. So let's say Anthony Knapp, as a tackle, is pass setting. He is retreat, 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 engage. It's hard to really then lock in and anchor the point of attack. Whereas a guard in the center, they're hitting contact real quick. I mean, they're pass set, engage. And then so you've got a lot more of hitting a guy and you're not retreating like you are. You're fighting more than you are retreating like you are as an offensive tackle. And retreating is the most common way I can explain kind of, what I'm referring to here. It's not really retreating as a pass set, but I'm just trying to get the visual in your head for what we're referring to there. So just comfort, other things, like I said, length is a big important thing. I really need a guard can get by with not having real powerful hands. If he's strong in the lower body, can just get hands on and move people with his lower body, you can thrive at guard. I really feel like a tackle has to have some level of just really strong hands, and hand speed is a very important thing for me. For a tackle, I need a tackle to be really smart. I need a tackle to have some change of direction skill to him. And, I just need a tackle to also be a guy that has very good vision. So those are the things that I would say. You're more in a phone booth at center and guard. Everything is kind of happening right here. The twists and stunts are kind of like right there. Tackles, it's a lot more space to play with.
Agreed. Same page here.
Let's get one here. Let's go. All right, here we go. From Muhammad Abdi.
Brian, what are the pros and cons to not having ACC games if Notre Dame decides to schedule games against a different conference?
Well, let's work with the assumption that they won't play any ACC games. The pros are that you're going to be playing against a league that has a better reputation than the ACC. Well, you don't know what league they're going to be in. Don't care. Right now, you're closer in reputation to the American Conference than you are the Big 12 or the Big 10 of the SEC right now, when you're beating everybody not named Miami or Clemson. I mean, let's just be honest with that.
Yeah.
Not saying that's fair, not saying that's right. I don't think it's necessarily right, but I mean, we just watched Florida State go out and beat the SEC runner-up by 2 touchdowns and then get their butts kicked throughout ACC play. You know what I mean? Like, we saw Louisville have some bad losses late in the year in the ACC to mediocre ACC teams and then go throttle Kentucky 41-0 at the end of the year. You know what I mean? Like, we saw Clemson lose at home to Duke, lose at home to Syracuse, and then go smash South Carolina, on the road in the last game of the season, a South Carolina team that in the previous month had almost beaten Alabama and almost beaten Texas A&M. But that's the perception. That's just the reality of it. I think the pros also are you're not dealing with a league that's as incompetent, although if you're going to be dealing with the Big 12, you're not that far off. But yeah. I think that's a pro. Another pro is I think that a pro to not playing the ACC games also is you do have more opportunities to maybe expand your current, footprint from a game standpoint. Let's say you're in the SEC. You're going to be playing down in Mississippi more. You're going to be playing down in Alabama more, Florida, Georgia, Texas, Missouri, places where you really want to expand your footprint and have success. So I think those things are all pros. Cons, you're not going to be in a conference that has the same kind of like-minded institutions as you have. And I think there's a lot of value to that. And I think that Notre Dame values that a lot. Notre Dame's got a lot more in common academically with Virginia than it does Ohio State. And that's not to say Ohio State's not a good academic institution. The point is it's a very different type of institution. Ohio State's got what, 50, 60,000, students. It's got, it's got these different campuses. It's got all these different things. I mean, they're both state schools, but University of Virginia has 26, I'm looking online, 26,000 total students, 17 undergrads, 8,000 graduate students. That's a lot closer to it is to Notre Dame. And then also it's more of a liberal arts institution and not as much of a research institution. Again, not better, not worse. It's just different. Ohio State here, 67,000 students across all of its campuses, so, those are just different things, Trev, that I look at and say that's one of the reasons that they like being in there. Another con is you lose a little bit of that footprint in the Mid-Atlantic where you've had a lot of success, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, you lose a little bit of that footprint. So I think those are some of the cons to not doing it. But the reality is, however, Trevor, is if you get out of the ACC deal, you're still going to be playing some of those teams. You're still going to schedule some of those teams. Clemson, obviously, you have a 12-year deal with. I promise you some of the Carolina teams are going to be more than happy to schedule home and homes for Notre Dame. I mean, was it you that pointed this out? Who was it that I saw this? But somebody pointed out, Pete Bavacqua said this, sellouts. They sell out like 23% of their games?
That is correct.
And when they play each other or like anybody else, but they sell out 90% of their games when Notre Dame plays. I saw something online that showed like I'm going to have to look this up, Trev, but let's see here. ACC TV viewers for Notre Dame, non-Notre Dame games. Let's see if something pops up on this. But I did see something the other day about ACC TV ratings for Notre Dame games compared to non-Notre Dame games. And here's another thing too, is there's a lot of SEC people kind of running their yaps about Notre Dame doesn't have the same draw as they used to. Their TV numbers are down. I think that's a direct reflection on the fact that they're playing in the ACC, because there's a lot of small fan bases in the ACC. They don't bring in their side of the aisle. They're not, we got a 100,000 seat stadium and we give this team 50,000 tickets, this team 50,000 tickets. Notre Dame's going to get their 50,000 in there, and the ACC teams are going to get like 15. You know what I mean? Like that's a big thing. So it's the fact that they're playing a bunch of games against teams with small fan bases that just are kind of apathetic. And so Notre Dame's viewership. So like ACC games against Notre Dame are way higher than ACC games where they're playing non-Notre Dame games. I think that's another con or pro to not playing in the ACC. You're going to be playing against bigger fan bases, and that this mantra that Notre Dame doesn't have the pull they have is going to go back to being like, yeah, that was stupid. Maybe instead of just grabbing on to a talking point, we should actually, maybe spend 5 minutes of research to find out, well, why are Notre Dame's TV numbers down? Well, that's because they're playing against teams that aren't bringing anything to the table when it comes to strong viewership. So I think that's another thing too. And look, you're hurting yourself, because all those NBC games, NBC's gonna be like, well, look, your numbers are here. Why is that? Well, so we're playing the ACC. Well, stop that. A lot of those things, I just don't think there's a ton of benefit, in my opinion, to playing the ACC. They're just not going to support football as a conference. As a whole, you're just not going to see Duke have the kind of fan base that we would love for it to have, or North Carolina, or Wake Forest, or a bunch of teams in the ACC. mean, you look at Pitt. I remember, Trev, what was the game you and I were talking about last year where Pitt was playing in a real big game last year? And we're watching the game. You're like, dude, did you see that crowd? That's ridiculous. That's embarrassing. Like, I remember watching the Duke game recently where they were like a 9-win team. And I'm looking at the crowd and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? This is the crowd for a 9-win team? I think it was like Riley, because I watched a bunch of Riley Leonard games in 2022 and I'm 23 and I'm like, this is embarrassing.
I mean, it was the same thing this year for Pitt. I mean, they hosted Miami and the stadium was half full. 2 weeks prior, they hosted Notre Dame and it was a sellout game. There's your answer right there. I mean, 2 top-level teams, 2 teams both ranked inside of the top 15. One of them was a sellout. The other one was at maybe 50 to 60% capacity. And that's at the start. I know there's the running jokes of, once Pitt started to lose, everybody kind of cleared out. But, like, it wasn't anywhere near close to full, even at the start. I agree completely. I will say another con is you won't have as many of like the more historic rivalries for Notre Dame on the schedule as consistently. Like they'll still schedule like, some home and home series with Boston College and Pitt, but you have a lot of history in the ACC with Florida State, with Miami, with Pitt, with Georgia Tech, even like Georgia Tech. Aren't they in like the top 5 of like opponents played for Notre Dame over the course of their program history? So you won't see some of those as on a consistent basis. I would chalk that up as a con because one of the best parts about being a Notre Dame fan is the tradition that comes with being a Notre Dame fan. But for a lot of the reasons that Brian listed out, I think a lot of the pros start to outweigh the cons, especially now in this day and age of the College Football Playoff Committee and what they evaluate. Perception is huge when you talk about games. We've seen it this year. I mean, look, Notre Dame could beat an 8-4 Louisville team. Nobody carries any weight because the cop-out line is, well, it's Louisville. And then in the same breath, somebody will give a team credit for beating an 8-4 Missouri team with the same amount of ranked win as this 8-4 Louisville team. Why is it different? Well, because it's Missouri. I don't really know what that means, but it's kind of how it is. So perception is a huge thing nowadays, and the ACC is the lesser of the 4 big conferences. From Dirtbag Jake, including incoming freshmen, who are your 3 fastest football speed guys on offense and the 3 fastest on defense? And then overall, top 3 to 5.
Oh, boy. I would probably say on offense, 5 fastest would probably be KK Smith, Cam Williams, Bubba Frazier would probably be my top 3 on offense, including incoming freshmen. Jonas Walton's not far off there. He's got some really good track times. He's very fast. He just is one of those build-up speed guys a little bit more than maybe some other guys who are fast starters. But defensively, I mean, Leonard Moore certainly is in that conversation. I'd say Christian Gray, and then maybe Kari Adams, maybe Tay Johnson would kind of probably be my next guy in there, just kind of off the top of my head.
Yeah, on offense, I echo the same. And then on defense, I agree with Leonard Moore and Christian Gray. My third one's probably Ben Minnick. That dude can move. I'd probably go him from a football speed standpoint. And then I guess, Brian, who are your overall top 3 to 5 on the team then?
Leonard Moore, KK, and probably Cam. I think probably be in that conversation. I mean, there's some other guys like Ben Minnick's in the conversation. Carson Hobbs is in the conversation. I've heard Logan Saldate has got some really impressive speed. Braden Robinson's another incoming freshman with speed. I talked about Jonas Walton. Those would probably be guys in the mix for me.
Yeah, for sure.
Somebody said Walton is faster than Frazier in track, and that's true. Lauren Hamilton's, that's true. I think his best 100-meter time is better. But the reason I don't say he's faster is because Jonas is more of a build-up speed guy. Bubba's more of an immediate speed guy. That's why I think he's a faster football speed than Jonas. All right, let's get to some more questions here. Got one from Andigo Irish 1988.
With this new cap, what happens to a university that violates it?
Not a dang thing.
Yep.
If the NCAA tries to do something, because until everybody signs that agreement that's out there, then nothing. It's just you're gonna get the NCAA is gonna try to levy some punishment against you or whoever the new group that does that is, and then you sue, and then you say, okay, you win the lawsuit because that's just kind of how it's been, sadly.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
From the history expert, if Notre Dame's 2025 schedule were the 12 playoff teams, over under 9.5 wins. Ooh, that's
over.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just go 12-1. They beat Tulane. I mean, they beat James Madison. They beat Tulane. Where's the Miami game at? If it's on the road, I mean, you've got to go the loss to those two because they lost to those two teams. But I think Notre Dame on a neutral field beats the rest of them. The problem with this thing is I don't know who's home and who's away. That's kind of part of the conversation too. But I'd say 10. I think Notre Dame against all those 12 teams, if they're all playing each other, I'd give Notre Dame 10 wins.
I would too. I mean, and I'd honestly take their spread on FanDuel more than what some of it is right now in the playoffs. I mean, honestly, when you go through and you look at what some of the numbers are, I mean, I think Notre Dame beats James Madison by more than 20. I think they beat Tulane by more than 17.5. I certainly think they would beat one of Oklahoma or Alabama by more than 1.5 points. And then we'll, cross the Texas A&M and Miami bridge when we get there. But I'm with you. I would take the over there too. It would be, I'll say this. I'm taking the over, but I think it would be close. Like the first round games, it's a little bit more clear cut. But once you start getting into like the Ohio States, the Indianas, like that's when it comes a little bit more foggy.
Records would look more like NFL teams than college teams.
Agreed.
Where if you played a 12-game schedule against all teams, like if you took the 32 best teams in college football and put them in a schedule, you won't have nobody's going undefeated. You're 9-3, 8-4, and you're making the playoffs. That's the reality of it.
Yep.
Got a few super chats here, Trev.
From Irish for Life 99, appreciate you. To Trevor, Die Hard is a Christmas movie. I agree completely. It's just not a real Christmas until Hans Gruber falls from Nakatomi Tower. Go Sooners.
I saw a clip where Bruce Willis was giving some speech at something, and he goes, "It's not a Christmas movie." And he goes, "It's a Bruce Willis movie." I was like, oh, okay. Gotcha. Well played. But it's a Christmas movie.
From Wade Garrett, appreciate the super chat. Hey,
I don't have the passion for arguing it's a Christmas movie that I have some fun with that. If somebody wants to say it's not a Christmas movie, if we're having a real conversation about it, I'm like, okay. Do we agree it's a great movie? Okay, cool. It's fun to joke about it being a Christmas movie. I think it is a Christmas movie because again, the whole thing is built around a Christmas party and all that kind of stuff. But it came out in July. It wasn't released around Christmas. But it's not something that I'm as serious about as I have some fun with that here. But I think some people think that I'm real serious about that. I have this really legitimate can't believe you don't think it's a Christmas movie. I don't care. I think it's funny. It's a fun conversation, but I don't care. We can just agree that it's a really good movie.
Super chat from Wade Garrett. Appreciate you, man. Hey, gents, how did you two become Notre Dame fans? And what's your fondest memory of Notre Dame football or otherwise? Happy holidays to everyone watching.
I think it's for the same for both of us. Our dads were both Notre Dame fans, and it took.
Yeah. I'm hobby-wise significantly different than the rest of the makeup of my family. We just have a lot of different interests. But Saturdays at 3:30, man, it's kind of the one thing that we all kind of got to do together. So that's how, and then it just kind of grew. And fondest memory. I mean, shoot, that's tough. I've been to some great games. I mean, I'll give you two. My dad and I were at the 2012 Pitt game. That was nuts. because we were up in the end zone, the side of the stadium where the pit kicker missed the field goal. And after Sierra Wood fumbled, my dad was like, hey, do you want to just head to the car and beat the traffic? And I was like, what if he misses? I'm not going to sit here and say that I predicted it to happen. I was just like, yo, man, this is like my third time ever in the stadium. I want to stay, and I was like, oh, what if he misses? And he's like, all right, we can stay. He missed. They won the game. It was a lot of fun.
So you were what, about 15? Did you about the 2012 game? Yeah, it's awesome.
Yep. And then the second one is honestly this past season, just me and my wife in the living room, just kind of going through it for the Orange Bowl. I mean, the roller coaster of emotion, but like it was just us two. And then I got to watch her fandom kind of expand because of that game. So that's probably my second one.
Yeah. Fondest memory. Still fondest memory is funny. My fondest memory is still a game they lost 38-0. Just the first time I was at a Notre Dame game with my dad. It was my dad, my brother-in-law, and a friend of his. And just being there that day, and it was sunny and beautiful, and just experiencing that with my dad, the outcome was such a minor part of that. Yeah. It would have made it an even better day if they would have won, certainly. Sure. But the loss wasn't going to take away from that. Just being able to experience that with my dad for the first time for both of us. We had never been to a game. I'd been on campus before. I went to a blue gold game at one point in time before. But like just being there with my dad was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. So that's my fondest memory. That kind of thing matters a lot to me more than like watching the 88 Miami. I mean, those are great games, but my greatest memory is just the experience of my being there with my dad.
Yep.
My favorite USC game is that, but like my other favorite USC game is the 2017 game. And it's not because I think it was 2017. Is it 15 or 17? I think it was 17. But a person who I knew had the box seats, like we're in the real nice area where you eat food. And so getting those for my parents and then Chicago played at halftime, and that's my dad's favorite band. And, like things like that are the things that I'll remember in 10, 20, 30 years more so than the games, although I'll definitely remember the games too. But like, that's the things that truly matter most to me.
Yeah, for sure. Super chat from AST12321. Appreciate you. Apropos of nothing, who are some high-performing coaches at smaller schools who might look for a job as a head coach at a contender in a few years?
Let me think about that. I don't know. Apropos of nothing, who are some honestly, that's a tough question to answer because the top programs just got absolutely rated. I mean, this answer a year ago would have been like Alex Golesh. It would have been John Sumrall. Eric Morris. A lot of those guys are gone now. You think about it. Tulane, North Texas, East Carolina, Memphis. And let's go down here to this league. You've got UConn. Their head coach just got rated. You've got Spencer Danielson's not going anywhere, by the way. I don't really. You could maybe look at Dan Mullen at UNLV, Sean Lewis at San Diego State. I don't see Timmy Chang going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like he's at his alma mater. James Madison's coach just got rated. Who's Old Dominion's coach? Let me go look this up real quick. Because it was Bobby Wilder, but he's not there anymore. Let me go look and see who they won 10 games. So, obviously that's be Ricky Rain, former Virginia Tech or Penn State assistant coach. Maybe him. He was with Franklin for a while at Penn State, has a Big 12 background. Maybe him. He won 10 games this year at Old Dominion. Maybe he's on that list. But honestly, I think what you might see is just who are the new coaches and how well do the new coaches do that step into those jobs. Honestly, like they got completely the top coaches of the G5 got completely rated. So, and then Old Dominion just beat South Florida 24-10 in their bowl game, so they finished 10-3. But that's Dan Mullen. So, I mean, that's why kind of Sean Lewis, guys with P5 backgrounds, either as assistant coaches, which, obviously Sean Lewis was there, or, guys who have been successful head coaches for a bit. So we'll see. Let's go back up top here real quick and get to a couple more. This is an interesting one about the playoffs for my dad.
Out of all players in the playoffs, which player single-handedly can change the course of the playoffs and have the overall biggest impact?
No, I don't know that there's one. I'd say there's probably one guy for each of the top teams. I think for Ohio State, it's going to be Julian Sand. I think he's the biggest one for them. Can he make plays? I mean, he's done a lot of elite game managing this year, but can he go out there and make plays in ways that he really couldn't in the Big 10 title game for Indiana? I mean, it's for Francisco. I'm just kidding. Fernando Mendoza. I think he's going to have to be that guy for number 3 Georgia. It's going to come down to one of their receivers has to step up if they're going to make a run. I think whether it's Zechariah Branch or probably Zechariah Branch would be my guy for them. Texas Tech. It comes down to. I think it really is going to come down to can David Bailey be that game-changing pass wrecker, game wrecker pass rusher in the playoffs against better competition. For Oregon, it's Dante Moore. I think he's got to be able to distribute that ball and get it to open receivers. For number 6 Ole Miss, I think it's Kawan Lacey. They're going to need Kawan Lacey to be a horse in the postseason. I really think that. For Miami, it's Carson Beck. Can he handle the pressure of these big moments? That's the 10 seed. Number 7, it's Marcel Reed. It's a lot of these are going to be quarterbacks. Because the reason I say that is because a lot of these quarterbacks are question marks, either because of youth, inexperience, or they're just so important to what their teams do that they're going to be there. Alabama, I mean, honestly, it's Ryan Grubs. Can Ryan Grubs find some way to? It's not a player. Going to cheat a little bit. Can he find a way to get their run game going at all? You're not going to win 4 games in the playoffs rushing for 110 yards a game. I don't care who you are. Caleb Board doesn't have before. No, Caleb Board won 1 playoff game before and then got beat the second game. It's a championship game, but they didn't have to go through first round, second round, third round before the championship game. And there's nobody for the 11 and 12 seeds that can carry that. For Oklahoma, I mean, Trev, you mentioned yesterday, Sean Mateer.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these are quarterbacks. And it's not because we're doing the lazy, just point to the quarterback. I mean, I really think those guys performing well are the keys to a lot of these football teams.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even the same would go for the teams that didn't make the playoffs. If Notre Dame was in the playoffs, I'd talk about C.J. Carr. If Texas was in the playoffs, I'd talk about Arch Manning. If I had to pick one sole person, I would probably still stick with John Mateer. Oklahoma does have an elite defense, but offensively, they live and die by how he plays. At least with some, not all, but at least with some of the other teams in the playoffs, there are some supporting roles where it's like, Ole Miss doesn't need Trinidad Chambliss or Austin Simmons, depending on what happens, to go absolutely ballistic, because Kawan Lacey is a good player. But for Oklahoma's offense, it's if John Mateer is having an off game, they might not win a playoff game. So I'd say by and large, he probably has the biggest in my eyes, but all quarterbacks are well in the discussion, that's for sure. From Coleman Smith, what's your detailed thoughts on what NIL was supposed to be compared to what it is now?
I don't have a clue what they thought it was supposed to be. I can tell you what I think it should be. And I've said it a bunch of times. NIL should be it should be the most straightforward thing on the planet. Name, image, likeness. You get paid for people using your name, your image, and your likeness in any sort of brand opportunities, any sort of commercials, advertisements, gear, merchandise, whatever. If the University of Notre Dame, I just remember leaving, I forget what stadium it was we were at, but they had like this big, long draped thing of a player on it. If they want to use something like that, cool. but you should get a little something for it. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. If I'm, as a business owner, I want to have CJ Carr be my spokesman, I should be able to have CJ Carr be my spokesman, and I should be able to pay CJ Carr accordingly for that. What do I value is worth it for me to have the starting quarterback at Notre Dame as a spokesman for my business? I think that's what it was meant to be. Look, if you're selling my jersey in a bookstore, I get a cut of that. If I want to go do an autograph session, I should be able to do that and make money off that. If I want to sell autographed jerseys of mine to make money off of that, then I should be allowed to do that. Right? Remember when AJ Green got in trouble for that?
Oh, yeah.
I think all those things should be allowed. But I think it should be regulated in a way where there does have to legitimately be a goods and service exchange, right? And if you're going to pay me X amount of dollars, I actually have to do these things for your company. I have to do this. I have to do that. I have to be at minimum appearances. You could do things. You could make rules like, look, we're not going to tell you how much money you have to make, but if you're in this range of money, you have to do at least a minimum of this, this, and this. If you're in this range of money, you have to do a minimum of this, this, this. You could do something like that. At the end of the day, it should be up to the business to decide how much they were willing to pay you. Your parameter, like this is where the NCAA and the quote unquote leadership of college football missed the boat. They want to put caps on NIL, which I think is absurd. If a business owner wants to give a kid $1 million, he should be allowed to give the kid $1 million. All I want you to do as an NCAA is say, hey, look, if you're going to give a kid $1 million, he has to do this, 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 and this. He has to appear at a minimum of 5 these and appear of and these this, and he has to do this and that kind of thing. He has to make an X number of Instagram posts. He has to show up at a number of functions. He has to do X number of TV and or radio advertisements. You can't just give him $1 million because he's playing at Notre Dame. You know what I mean? And you did your part to get him to Notre Dame. There has to be some sort of exchange going on there. That's what I think needs to be regulated. You don't regulate how much money you can give a kid. That should be up to the business owner to determine what makes sense for his business. But you should be able to regulate. There has to be it's got to be a two-way street. And there's got to be minimums on you have to do at least this. And if a business wants you to do more, that's between you and the business in your negotiations. But you have to do at least this many. That way you're not just handing someone this and they come and do one 5-minute thing and here's your $1 million. No. You have to do X number. That's what I would do. That's what NIL should be for me. And then the rev share should be simple. The rev share should literally be each school pays X amount of dollars and you have to spread that evenly throughout your team. Whatever the allotment for your team is, you spread that. Walk-ons get a certain amount that's lower. Scholarship players get a certain amount that's higher. But whether you're the starting quarterback or the third-string quarterback, you're getting that number of dollars. Your total package should be determined by what your NIL opportunities are. I think it's also ridiculous that schools should be allowed to do that. Schools should be allowed to negotiate with businesses on behalf of the players. They should absolutely do that. There should be things in all these schools should be demanded. They should demand that there's education for players when it comes to finances, taxes, things along those lines. There should be more protections put in place to make sure we're having real agents, not some of these scumbags that are stealing from kids. There are some very good, legitimate agents out there. There are also some people in this wild, wild west that are taking full advantage of players and robbing players. And nobody's talking about that because that doesn't fit the narrative of the, player-friendly narrative that the media likes to portray themselves as having. So, it shouldn't be as hard as we're making it.
Agreed. Yeah, I agree completely. I've gone on record to say this before. I think the revenue share plus the NIL model should look a lot like a sales compensation plan. Rev share is your base salary, and that's tiered based on all the things that Brian laid out. And then your NIL opportunities is like your commission. And that's where the top end earner, because look, at the end of the day, Jeremiah Love deserves to make more money than what the 4th string cornerback at Notre Dame should make. I just think that that's fair based on the amount of money he generates. It's going to draw more attention. It's going to draw more eyes. Simply put, I think that's exactly how it should be. It's just not. And there needs to be significantly more confines in place and more guardrails. They just kind of threw it out into the water and hoped that it floated.
Yep.
Maiden Benami.
I want to get to – I got his second one already.
No worries. From Tavis McKay, let's say Ash is gone after this upcoming season. For any reason, could Mickens finally be promoted?
I have no idea. Like, look, for a while there, I really thought that Marcus Freeman was like, dude, this guy truly says what he means and what he thinks. Over the last year, that opinion's changed a little bit, simply because, he's had to say more things and he's been here longer. But, he talks about how Mike Mickens a year ago, Mike Mickens is ready to be a D coordinator, at this level. And then when his D coordinator job comes open, he doesn't even interview Mike Mickens. So maybe now he would. I don't know. There's no evidence. His words and his actions told us two different stories a year ago. His words told us Mike Mickens is ready to be a D coordinator. His actions told us, but not at Notre Dame. Would that change? I have no idea. I mean, he hired a guy who hadn't been a coordinator since 2020, and it was basically like a backup scout for the Jaguars because he'd been fired as a position coach by the Raiders. And he thought that guy was more qualified to not only hire but interview than what Mike Mickens did because of what he did over a decade ago at Ohio State. So, I mean, his actions tell me that I don't know that he values Mike Mickens. I don't know that. I don't know what goes on between Marcus Freeman and Mike Mickens. I don't know. Maybe Mike Mickens knows exactly where he stands with Marcus Freeman. I don't know. I'm simply telling you as an outsider, his words say this, his actions told us this. So I have no reason to believe that his actions would be different this time. Maybe they would be. But I'm just at the point in my life, Trev, where I've been burned so many times by Notre Dame and other people because I made the mistake of taking people at their word that I no longer really take people at their word. I take people by their actions. And
that's extremely fair.
Yeah. And we also watched the things Mike Mickens likes to do coverage-wise completely get ignored beginning of the season. What's that tell you about how much control Marcus Freeman was willing to allow Chris Ash to have on that defense compared to what Mike Mickens has done? So there's no evidence to me of action that tells me that he thinks he's anything other than an elite DB coach. Now, let's not get it twisted. Marcus Freeman's actions also tell us that he thinks Mike Mickens is an elite DB coach. Right? Like, this isn't like poo on Marcus Freeman. He doesn't respect Mike Mickens. The number of times they've gone to bat to get Mike Mickens a big pay raise to be the DB coach tells me that Marcus Freeman values Mike Mickens a great deal as a DB coach. I don't want this to sound all negative. I'm simply saying he's done nothing in action-wise to show us that he believes that Mike Mickens is actually a D coordinator caliber person at a place like Notre Dame. So I don't want to make this seem like, oh, Marcus Freeman doesn't respect Mike Mickens. None of us know if Mike Mickens is ready to be an elite D coordinator at this level. None of us do. We all know he's an elite DB coach. So does Marcus Freeman. And I think Marcus Freeman would love to have Mike Mickens coaching his DBs as long as he's a coach at Notre Dame. But that doesn't mean he also values him as a potential D coordinator. So I want to make sure that I'm clear on that. This isn't a Marcus Freeman doesn't respect Mike Mickens type of conversation. It just means he doesn't think he's a D coordinator at Notre Dame. But he definitely thinks he's an elite DB coach.
Tavis, I think we're going to get an answer to this question depending on what happens this offseason. We've gotten a lot of questions about, what can they do to get him to stay outside of just sliding over a blank check, and some of that's by title and responsibility. And the only other step is co-defensive coordinator. If Marcus Freeman and the staff name Mike Mickens as a co-defensive coordinator this season, and then if this scenario plays out, I would have to imagine that Mike Mickens would then be named the defensive coordinator in 2027. So might get a little bit more clarity in that in the next couple months. But again, if not, then we're in the same situation we are now. Johnny from the boot, USC tight end Walker Lyons is in the portal. Would this be a tight end that would spark Notre Dame interest?
I doubt it. He's a talented player, but my assumption is that he's going to be going to BYU. He did some nice things last year for them. He's a talented player. caught a pass for 25 yards against Notre Dame, but I don't know that he's the kind of guy that necessarily would move the needle a ton. But at the end of the day, I really think a big reason he jumped in the portal is he's going to go with his brother to BYU. That's my guess. I could be completely wrong because I believe Ryder's also going to go on a mission early on anyway, which means there's a chance they may not play together for very long. So I don't want to assume that that's true, but I don't know that Notre Dame would be the place that he would be looking to go. He wasn't that interested in Notre Dame coming out of high school.
Yeah, agreed. That's always the other side of the portal discussion is would the player even be interested in coming to Notre Dame? You know, that's very fair. Brian Kelly's Irish goodbye. With this season ending the way it did, being snubbed from the playoffs and no bowl, does it feel like we wasted an extremely talented group and one of the most recent realistic chances at a national championship?
I think that I don't love the word wasted there. I think, did we miss an opportunity with an extremely talented group and one of the most recent realistic chances at a natty? Absolutely. Was it a given? No, it wasn't a given. I mean, I still have questions about the offensive line. I still have, some questions about certain things when they did get to the deeper into the playoffs and they played the Ohio States, the Indianas, the Oregons. I still had some questions about Chris Ash. I still had some questions about the offensive line. But I would have said Notre Dame's got as good of a chance as anybody of winning it all. Because I have some questions about those teams too.
Yeah.
I mean, like this isn't just a Notre Dame's only team with questions. I have questions about Oregon in some of those games. Oregon's offense struggled against Indiana and Iowa. Those are all things you look at and say, the two most talented defenses that Ohio State played all year, they scored 14 and 13 points. So everybody's got questions. I'm simply saying it's not a given, but I do think Notre Dame was one of the 2 to 3 teams that had the absolute best chance to win it all. And being snubbed is a big reason why. I think Notre Dame earned the right to be in the playoffs. But I also go back to, did Notre Dame waste that? I think, you know what I mean? Like, that's where I see that that missed opportunity being more prevalent. If you just go 1-1 in your first 2 games, we're talking about, man, can't believe Notre Dame is a double-digit favorite over, Alabama. It's crazy. That's kind of where we're at. Because they'd be a 6 seed, 5 seed, something like that, getting ready to play, Bam at 10 or 11 or whatever, depending on how things would have shaken out.
Wasted is definitely an aggressive word, but it's hard for me to disagree with it because then I start to think about, on one hand, it's, was it completely wasted? The talent, was it completely wasted? No, because it was a record-setting year in many ways. But then the flip side of that argument is, well, yeah, it was a record-setting year that we didn't get to see in the postseason. So it's like, it's tough not to use that word. I definitely understand the spirit of where you're coming from in this one, but yeah, I'll just flat out say it sucks that we can't watch Jeremiah Love in the postseason this year. He's the best running back in college football. It sucks that we can't watch a defense that had just a complete 180 turnaround, what they could have done against some of these offenses. I would have loved to see what CJ Carr would have done in the playoffs this year. So I get where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm.
From Chuck Melchior. Sorry if I butchered that last name, but from Chuck. When will the contract extension be announced?
No idea. I don't know that they've definitely signed one. I was under the impression they were going to sign one. As of right now, they either have done it and just don't really care to tell any of us, or they haven't done it yet for whatever reason, and I don't know what that reason is. So I honestly don't know.
I was waiting for you to get to this one. I saw this come in, and it made me laugh. This is great. From a more handsome Audrey Denson. What's the reason college football has yet to put a commissioner in place?
Oh, Brandon, I love that you're leaning into that. So that's awesome. I mean, who would be able to promote a guy to what position? What entity does he work for? Who's paying his bills? Like that's the thing is he going to work for the NCAA? Well, they have no pull. Is he going to work for the College Football Playoff Committee? Well, how does that work? Like, what's the entity that exists that allows him to be commissioner of what? Of college football. Yeah, I understand that. But college football right now is a division. It's broken up into different. It's kind of like we can say like there's 50 states in America, right? But they all make up one federal government, right? There's one federal government. That's not. There is no Washington D.C. here. There is no federal government that's been given certain powers from the Constitution of the United States, right? That they can look at and abuse, or excuse me, that they can look at and say this is what we're meant to do, right? And this is where our power comes from, right? And this is the document we can use to abuse that power, right? Like there isn't that right now in college football. Like who would you be working for? Who would promote you to that position? Because you don't want to have that person work for the NCAA, because the NCAA, once you get tied to the NCAA, you lose all your power. Like so you'd have to create some sort of entity that exists that currently, like you'd have to create some entity that currently doesn't exist in order to have a commissioner. That's the reality of it. So until that entity exists, I mean, somebody give me a better explanation. Trev, give me a better explanation. Who would you be? What would you be commissioner of?
Well, you would have to start at a smaller level. I agree with everything that you're saying. Yeah, I don't know if you put a commissioner in place of all of college football. Maybe you put a commissioner in place of the playoffs, but then that just means that ESPN would promote one of their people, and we all know how that would go. So you would have to start at a smaller level, or it would have to be a thing where college football as a whole just breaks away from the NCAA, which is also just super messy. So a lot of that is the reason more handsome Andre Denson. But that's essentially that's what it comes down to. Because then you start talking about if it's over all of college football, what would their job be? Like, what would be the responsibilities of the commissioner of college football?
Yeah. I mean, is ESPN and the playoff committee going to give up their authority to determine playoffs to the commissioner? Is the NCAA going to give up its governing authority over college football even more so to this commissioner? Is each conference going to be willing to sign on to rules? Like, what's the process of rules? There's just so much to this.
Yeah.
That it's just not something you could do. Somebody says, my vote's for Brian Driscoll. I mean, I support that wholeheartedly. I'd do it for free. But the point is, okay, but then where does my power come from? How am I able to make rules? What's my bargaining power come from? That currently does not exist. You'd have to create that some way, shape, form, or fashion.
Agreed. Insured by Big, the resident LSU fan in the chat. Thoughts on Lane Kiffin being the head coach at LSU? God bless and go Tigers.
Well, look, I was asked this question. I think Lane Kiffin is a boomer bust hire. If he can somewhat like control himself and contain himself and just not like be vintage Lane all the time, he's turned into a pretty good football coach, Trev. I mean, look what he did at Ole Miss the last 3 years. And he's done some very good things. You have to understand that there's always going to be some ups and downs with Lanes. You're going to have a year where you have your most talented roster in 5 years and you're going to go 9-3, which is exactly what they did last year. And then the next year, you're going to lose a ton of those guys in the NFL and you're going to go 11-1 and he's going to coach his butt off. You know what I mean? Like, that's Lane. You have to live with that. Can Lane Kiffin lead them to a championship? Possibly. Could this be just a flaming disaster? Possibly. That's what you get with Lane Kiffin. But the ceiling of your program got astronomically higher once you hired Lane Kiffin compared to Brian Kelly. Lane Kiffin is a question mark if he can win a title. Brian Kelly was not going to win a title. Well, everybody that has Marcus Freeman's a question mark if he can win a title. Everybody outside of Dabo, Kirby, and Ryan Day, I mean, I believe those are the only 3 active coaches that have won a title, correct?
That is correct. At the FBS level.
Right. Yeah. So everybody's a question mark. Lane's in that category. He's got a lot of potential. So whereas the previous coach you had was not going to win a title at LSU. So I think in that regard, it's an improvement. The drama, LSU's always got drama. I mean, go back to Nick Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orrs. That's just kind of one of them places. But do you have a guy that is, can control himself enough to go win? That's what we'll find out.
Agreed. If they can handle the off the field stuff, I think this is a really good hire. From an X's and O's standpoint, he's going to get LSU's offense back up to being one of the top, if not the top offense in the conference. And that's what they need. That's the thing that's been lacking from LSU the last couple of seasons. I mean, Brian, you and I were both extremely high on what LSU's defense, what they could have been this season, and then what they turned into. It's just the fact that the offense took a major step back. So X's and O's, love the hire. If you can handle the off the field stuff, I'd say it'll be a success. But that's when you're talking about Lane Kiffin and LSU, it's not just as simple as if you could just handle the off the field stuff. Yeah, it's a lot with it. Son of Donald, would y'all ever consider a segment that educates people on the basics of football so that they can too enjoy a breakdown eventually? I'm thinking of my girlfriend trying very hard to love Notre Dame.
Well, we do kind of have that. We've done some football 101. Son of Donald, you are new to the premium board. You and I were texting or exchanging private messages earlier on the Irish Breakdown board. If you go to the top of the board, there's something called IB Film Breakdowns. You click on that. Underneath that, there's a lot of kind of football 101-ish type of things. I explain inside zone, mid zone, outside zone, run plays. Those film breakdowns that we do a lot of kind of football 101 when we're going through it. Like I'll explain what cover 3 is. I'll do those type of things. I think watching those videos is really the best way. And I've said for a while, I'd love to be able to do like a football 101 official series. I still want to do that. I can't commit to when I'm going to do that because it's time consuming. But yeah, I would love to be able to do that at some point in time for sure. But we do have some stuff out there that I would encourage you to watch. And if you think she would get something out of it, I mean, I've had husbands come up and tell me that their wives have watched that stuff and it's really been helpful. And I've had guys tell me that their moms watched it and they liked it and it was helpful. So I would encourage you to watch that stuff and maybe pass along some of that stuff to her.
From Raymond Tittman, how many wide receivers will Notre Dame take in the portal?
At least one. I think there's a chance they could take 2, but at least one. I think based on some things that I believe are going to become public somewhat soon, I hope become public soon. I think the need for 2 is diminished, but I think they definitely, Raymond, I think they at least take 1 for sure. And I think they need 1. I mean, look, I've said it along, coach up Cam Williams, coach up Micah Gilbert, but you don't say no to Nick Marsh either. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Yeah. You gotta be smart about that.
Absolutely. Getting into part 2 of the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's the Friday Free-For-All Mailbag. And DJ Holman is getting us kicked off here in part number 2. He asks, how many teams have multiple unanimous first-team All-Americans and how many made the playoffs? Well,
that is a great question. Have you looked that up, Trev?
I saw this question come in, and I have a couple. I mean, that have multiple. I know Ohio State has 3. McDonald, Jeremiah Smith, and Caleb Downs were all unanimous All-Americans. So Ohio State is one of them.
Wow. It still blows my mind that neither Styles nor Reese were unanimous first-team All-American linebackers.
Agreed. Yeah, that's crazy to me too. Crazy. But I know Ohio State is one of the teams, but I think that might be it. They're not the only team with a unanimous All-American because I'm pretty sure
USC had 1. Miami had 1. Let me look this up real quick. Here,
I know Texas Tech, the linebacker at Texas Tech, I think was a unanimous All-American.
Yeah, Rodriguez. Yep. Yeah. Let me see if I can find this here. Yeah, so according to this page right here, Ohio State had 3 that you mentioned. Texas Tech had 2. David Bailey and Jacob Rodriguez, so they're in the playoffs. So that's 2 teams. USC had 1. Vandy had 1. Utah had 1. Iowa had 1. Texas A&M had 1. LSU had 1. Notre Dame had 2. So there's only 3 teams that have 2 unanimous All-Americans this year, and they are definitely in the playoffs. last year there was no team had more than one unanimous All-American. In 2023, Iowa had 2 and didn't make it. Of course, that was a 14 playoff. They wouldn't have made it anyway. But they were the only team that I'm seeing here. They're the only team in 2023 that had multiple unanimous All-Americans.
Gotcha. So
in 2022, Georgia did. So not many.
So there's only 3 teams with unanimous All-Americans, and 2 of them are in the playoffs. Okay.
There you go.
From Alex Rohr, is Greathouse and Aeneas really staying? Has that been confirmed?
Well, it hasn't been confirmed by those players or by Notre Dame. And so until they do that, I don't want to say a whole lot about that. But as of now, I feel a lot better about those 2 guys staying. As of right now.
From Zach, 32, if you had to choose one portal receiver, KJ Duff or Nick Marsh?
I would go with Nick Marsh. Couple reasons for that. Now, what I like about KJ Duff is he's got great size, Trev. I mean, great size. But let me just say this. They're both really good football players. And both would help your football team. I just think Nick Marsh has a little bit more explosiveness, a little bit more big playability. I think KJ Duff's a little bit more reliable. He's a bigger bodied kid, real physical kid. Can win contested catches pretty effectively. I just think Nick Marsh is the higher ceiling player. I think Nick Marsh also brings a little bit more versatility to the table than KJ Duff does. And KJ Duff's like 6'6", 220, something like that, Trev?
Yeah, he's massive.
He's a boundary guy. I mean, that's just kind of what he is. Whereas I think Nick Marsh brings a little bit more flexibility, versatility. I think that KJ Duff would be a great contested catch guy. I mean, the numbers this year, he was 21 of 35, looking at PFF, 21 of 35 on contested catches. That's a 60% success rate. That's a pretty good number. And especially for a guy whose average depth of target on his 87 targets was 17.3 yards down the field. That's good. I just don't know that, that's a lot of what he does is just kind of the deep balls. That would work fine at Notre Dame. I just would like a guy that has a little bit more to his game, and so that's why I'd go with Nick Marsh. But they're both good football players, and if they were in the portal and both end up, because is KJ Duff definitely in the portal? Is he officially declared yet?
I don't think so.
I know there's a lot of rumblings he's going to, but I don't know that he has definitely. I haven't checked in a couple days, but I know Nick Marsh is in the portal. But if KJ Duff jumped in and you could get him, I'd be happy about that. If you just asked me which one would I pick between, I'd go with Nick Marsh. I think there's just a little bit more juice to his game and a little bit more upside to his game, but they're both good football players, and I think both could help Notre Dame. Absolutely. And fit that mold of what they're looking for.
For sure.
Yeah.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Thank you, Tyler. Last year in the playoffs, the average margin of victory was 19 points. What do you think the average margin of victory will be this year?
Well, I mean, so let me just go here. On our predictions yesterday, Trevor and I actually made score predictions, so I can literally just add it up and tell you what it's going to be. I think the average margin of victory, based on what I predicted yesterday, is going to be 16 points. 4-point win for Oklahoma, 4-point win for A&M, 21-point win for Ole Miss, 35-point win for Oregon. If I'm wrong, I think I'm going to be wrong on my games are too close. You know what I mean? I could see certain games being blowouts. I could see any of these games end up being a blowout. That's how the playoffs have been. It's the track record.
In the first round, I didn't know if we were going for the duration of the whole playoffs or just tonight and tomorrow. Because if all things factored in, I think it'll be less than last year for the entire playoffs.
Because there's not as many good teams.
Yeah, exactly. There's not an Ohio State team in the playoffs this year that I think is going to beat Oregon by the margin that they did in the quarterfinals. Mm-hmm. I don't think that there's a Boise State level team that's going to make it to the quarterfinals to then lose by 2 touchdowns in the quarterfinals. So by and large, I think it's going to be less, to Brian's point.
Mm-hmm.
But the first round, it's whatever we predicted yesterday. It'll be close, but it'll be strongly levied by what happens in the late afternoon and the night game tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. If I took that as first round, if he's for entire playoff, I tend to agree with you. It's because I think there's more parity in the playoff this year than there was in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'll just leave it at that. All right, let's go back up here. We've got some more questions. I want to get to some folks that we have not got to yet. Let's get to we've just got Zach's question. Let's go to Patrick J.A. Fitzgerald.
Which team on Notre Dame's 2026 schedule can you see exceeding expectations and presenting them with a nice resume win?
Oh, let's see here. Let's look at Notre Dame's schedule next year. We did talk about yesterday a little bit about some. I mean, part of this, man, is who are teams getting in the portal? I mean, that's a big part of this. Like if Aiden Childs is coming back to Michigan State, I'd say, and Nick Marsh was going to go back to Michigan State, I could say, man, that Michigan State team is going to be pretty good. I don't have a clue who their quarterback's going to be. There's a new coaching staff. I'll say this. If they have a success in the portal and can find themselves a quarterback, I mean, Pat Fitzgerald's putting together a really good staff. Did you see just hired LeVar Woods to be his assistant head coach and special teams coordinator? That was a great hire. Like, that's who I thought I wanted Notre Dame when they hired Marty Biagi. This is no knock on Marty Biagi at all. He's done some good things. But obviously my friend Justin, I would love for them to have hired. I think he's a very good special teams coach. He's at Penn State now. Or I wanted him to hire LeVar Woods. Those are my two guys. I think LeVar Woods is an elite special teams coach. I mean, I think he's one of those guys that is getting not looked at hard enough as a head coach at some spots. But they're doing. I mean, I think Max Bulla was a great hire, but I don't know if they have the talent. But if they're a team that I got my eye on, I want to see how they do in the portal. You talked about Miami. I could see SMU having a bounce back season next year and being a 9-10 win team again. Looking at their schedule, they play UC Davis, they play Missouri State. They have home games against BC, Cal, Virginia Tech, Wake. Their road games are Syracuse, Stanford, Louisville, and Florida State. Like, there's a lot of winnable games in there for them to maybe be a 9-3, maybe even 10-2 type of team next season. That would be one that I would look at. Other than that, it's hard for me to say that until we see who's going to get what in the portal. I like how Wisconsin finished the year. Do I think Wisconsin's going to be a 9-win team that improves your resume? I have no clue because I don't know who they're going to lose and get in the portal. It's just not as easy now as it was. 5 years ago, you could right now sit down and look and you could say, well, these are the NFL draft declarations. And other than that, we know, who or potential NFL draft declarations. Other than that, you have a pretty good idea who's going to be on this team next year. Now I have no clue. I don't even know all the guys going to be on Notre Dame's team next year. So it's not till mid-January we're going to really know this. But just as of what we know right now, those are the couple teams that I would say probably have the best shot at it.
Yeah, my money as of right now is probably on SMU. Kevin Jennings announced yesterday that he's coming back to the school for his senior season. So I'd probably go with him for now, but to Brian's point, it depends on what the rosters look like here in about a month. Bobby S., chances on Jason Onye's return next year, and if he does, how many defensive tackles would you take in the portal?
If he comes back, one or none would be what they'll do. I'd still go one if it's the right guy. What are the chances he returns? I would say probably not likely, would just be my guess. That's just a guess because I don't know what the justification would be. He's played in, 5 or more games in 4 different seasons. I don't know what the justification would be to get them that. The NCAA has not prone to grant extra eligibility to Notre Dame players because Notre Dame doesn't threaten them the way that other places do. There's no threat of lawsuits if Notre Dame doesn't win this one, just like Notre Dame completely screwed over Alohi Gilman, but was more than willing to give Justin Fields immediate eligibility. Why? Because they were worried about a lawsuit. So I hope that I'm proven wrong, but I just always assume that that's not going to work out well for Notre Dame until proven otherwise.
From Berto 2121, after Holtz's success with limited support, is there a head coach who would have been more open to coming to Notre Dame if the school supported football the way they are currently? A coach the school goes after.
Yeah. I think if Notre Dame supported their program in 2004 and 5 or 2004, the way that they support their program now and had the facilities that they have now, I think Urban Meyer would have absolutely given Notre Dame a bigger look. And everybody at times like, oh, Urban's afraid of coming to Notre Dame. He don't want to have to work hard. I'm like, no, he was not an idiot. He understood how hard the school worked against the football program when he was there. He understood how far behind Notre Dame was from a facility standpoint. He got all that. And, chose to go to Florida. If Notre Dame was then what it is now, I think there's a good chance Urban Meyer would have taken that job. I absolutely think so. Here's another one for you. If the program supported if the program was supported the way it was then as it is now, I think Bob Stoops takes the job in 2010. So I think I've said this before on the show. Notre Dame reached out to two coaches before they offered Brian Kelly the job, Kirk Ferentz and Bob Stoops. I was told by a couple people at the time, and I've had a couple people confirm since then, that Bob Stoops basically verbally agreed to it but wanted to think about it. And then as he talked to his wife and family, he realized he had some unfinished business at Oklahoma, and it was a hard job to walk away from. And I don't know that Notre Dame was as supportive of the program then as it is now. The facilities were way behind. I think if Bob Stoops could have seen coming what came at Notre Dame with all the changes that were made the first 5 years, I think he might have taken it. But if they were supporting the program the way they are now, back then, I think Bob Stoops would have taken that job. He's always had a very affinity for Notre Dame. Growing up in Ohio as a Catholic kid, you know what I mean? I think that's the one job that he would have left Oklahoma for. And ultimately, it wasn't enough. And it wasn't about money. It wasn't that. It just was, I think ultimately he felt like he had more work to do at Oklahoma. And Notre Dame just didn't have enough to offer him in all the ways to get him to go away. I think now it'd be a much more attractive job. Much more attractive job.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. It's a good question.
From Play Like a Champ, who would be your Notre Dame all 2020s team so far on offense and defense?
Oh, goodness. Man, that's an interesting one. All right. So let's go quarterback. I'd go CJ Carr. Agree with that? Or I'll just give mine, you give yours, Trev.
Yeah, I'm also CJ Carr.
Running back, Jeremiah Love.
Yep.
My 3 wide receivers, I'm going to go with, 2020 to now. So I'm going to go with my boundary receiver. It's going to be Malachi Fields. It's either him or Javon McKinley. Boy. My Z receiver, it's going to be Kevin Austin. And my slot receiver would probably be Jaden Greathouse.
Yep. The only discrepancy I have there, my Z receiver, I'm taking Braden Lindsey. That dude was getting open.
Yeah. CJ Carr and Braden Lindsey would have got along very well.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. That's why I'm taking him.
Yeah, that's a good one. Tight end, that's an easy one as well. That's Michael Mayer.
Yeah.
Offensive line, left tackle, Joe Walt. That's an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
So on my offensive line, though, I'm going to have to move some guys around. So my right tackle would be Liam Eichenberg.
Mm.
My center would be Robert Hainsey. My left guard would be Aaron Banks. And my right guard would be 21, 22.
Yeah.
If Tommy Kramer didn't get banged up in 2020, he might be. I'm going to go Billy Schrauth.
Nice.
Yeah. Billy Schrauth, or maybe move Blake Fisher inside the guard. So Alt, Banks, Hainsey, Schrauth, Eichenberg.
I'm with
You
that.
could go Jarrett Patterson at center as well, but I kind of like Robert Hainsey there. But I'm not going to argue with you. You wanted to put him there. That's my offense, Trev. Anybody that you would change on the offensive line?
The only one I was thinking about was Jarrett Patterson at center. I know in 2020 he didn't allow a single sack all season, so the only discrepancy I have there is Jarrett Patterson at center.
Okay. Let's go D end. I mean, I think you got to have Foskey on one edge.
Yeah.
I'm going Boubacar on the other. D tackle, I'm going Riley Mills is one. 2020. I gotta kind of refresh my memory on some guys. So what I will say is I'm going with a 4-3 personnel here on this one. I do know that, but let me see here. No, so Mills is one D tackle. No, he was too. Adam Iola was too inconsistent for me. Let's see here. Honestly, with all due respect to Howard Cross from 2023, I'd probably go Jared Dawson. So Jared Dawson or 2023 version of Howard Cross is where I would go with that one. Linebacker, I'm going with a true rover, Trev, because I'm going to have Jeremiah Wusu-Koramoah as my my rover there. My other linebacker spots, I'm going to go Drake Bowen at Mike.
Yeah.
Well, Drake at Mike. And my will, I'm torn. I mean, because J.D. Bertrand played Mike for 1 year and he had over 100 or Will for 1 year and he had over 100 tackles. Ah, man, I'm torn. I'm torn between J.D., Jack, Marist, and here's another one I'm torn with. Kingston. Like
Kingston's going to be my will.
Yeah.
Like it's a linebacking core and a 4-3 of JOK, Drake Bowen, and Kingston. That's
yeah, pretty good. My safety rotation is that's easy. That's Xavier Watson, Kyle Hamilton.
Yeah.
And my cornerbacks, this one's not as easy. Leonard Moore for sure, but I'm really torn between Benjamin Morrison, and Cam Hart from 2023. I'm really torn on that.
If we can move people around just because of the secondary, I just now thought about this. I'm going to switch everything up. I'm going to go 4-2-5, same defensive line that you have. I'm going to go Drake and JOK at linebacker. I'm going to move Ben Morris into my nickel and have my two corners be Cam Hart and Leonard Moore.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. In my 4-3 alignment, because I don't know that JOK could play inside. In my 4-3 alignment, I think I'm going to go Cam Hart as my field and Leonard as my boundary. I love Benjamin Morrison, but I just think Leonard Morris in 2025 was better than what Benjamin Morrison was in 2023. That's still the best duo. 23 is still the best corner duo with Cam and Benjamin. Still their best corner.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm going to go Cam Hart and Leonard Moore. I don't think Notre Dame fans understand how good Cam Hart was in 2023.
He was nasty.
He was unbelievably good in 2023. That's one heck of a secondary.
Yeah.
That is one heck of a secondary, man.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness. That's one heck of an offensive line, too. That's not a bad offensive line. And if we're taking coaches from this 2020s, my O-line coach is Harry Easton. So I'm feeling real good about that.
Yeah, that coaching staff would also be absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, Al Golden, DC. I'd take Freeman as head coach. Mike Denbrock as offensive coordinator. Harry Heedstand as offensive line coach. I'd take
Golden over Clark Lee, huh? I might have to take Clark Lee.
D coordinators. Okay, I'd have Clark Lee be the defensive coordinator, and I'd have Al Golden be my linebackers coach. I guess. And then Mike Mickens can just continue being who he's been. So, yeah, that's a loaded staff.
Yeah, that's not good. That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all. That's amazing. I mean, if Benjamin would not have got hurt last year, my answer might be different at corner. But Cam in 23 was nasty.
Yeah,
he really was. I love fun questions like that.
I do too. I don't love the offseason, but questions like this, and the reason why, those are fun.
And it's the perfect time for it. Like the offseason is an absolutely perfect time to have those kind of those more fun, lighthearted conversations. Absolutely.
From ND Milton fan, in order, will you rank those happiest and most vindicated with the BK debacle?
Well, there's only one person on that list that I care about, and that's me, myself, and I. Like, I don't know what other people said, really. I know what I said, and I know what I stood on, and I know the principles that I believed in at the time. And Brian Kelly absolutely 100% showed everyone that I know him as well as I know myself. I knew exactly who he was. I knew exactly what he was going to do and what he wasn't going to do. And so, yes, I am putting myself number one on that list. I don't know who else would even be on the list. But that sounds arrogant, and it's not meant to be arrogant. It's just, as I said before, that dude caused me a lot of issues. A lot of issues. So, yeah. And, I mean, I don't know that I definitely want to say I'm happy about it. It's not that I was like actively rooting for his failure, but I will say that I enjoyed it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that I spent enough time thinking about it to say for sure that I was, rooting for it.
Sure.
I just knew it was going to happen. So I didn't need to necessarily root for it because I just kind of assumed. So, yeah. And by the way, we did see that we're in the middle of a show, so we're not just going to drop everything to dive into it, but we did see that Teddy Gerard's reclassification has gone through, and he will be a part of the 2026 class. So we expected that. We said that as long as some things got done, we thought this would be the case. But, we'll talk about that more here a little bit. And then we'll obviously have some stuff on it after the show. All right, let's get to Zach.
If you had to design a computer ranking that decides the college football playoff, how would you weight it? What metrics would go into it?
If I could design a computer ranking that decides this, well, I mean, I couldn't tell you that I would have the perfect system. I don't know that I could tell you that I could sit here mathematically and determine the equations that go into this, and this should weight this for that thing and the other thing. I don't know that I could do that. What I think you have to be able to do is you do have to be able to find a method that combines who you beat and how you beat teams. Because if you have a team that for whatever reason, and often when you have a really weak schedule, at times it's going to be because of things outside your control. And a perfect example of that is Indiana. Now, is Indiana's soft schedule in some regards in their control? Yes, because you scheduled Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, and Indiana State out of your conference. Is the fact that the road game against Penn State was not as good because Penn State was down and Michigan State was down and Wisconsin was down, is that in their control? No, it's not. But so you have to be able to look at and say, my 12-0 may not be more impressive than your 10-2. But just because your 10-2 was against a really hard schedule doesn't mean that my 12-0 is not more impressive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, both things could be true. Like Georgia, if Georgia would have gone 9-3 in 2024 against that schedule, as long as the losses were competitive, that was going to impress me more than Indiana going 11-1. Because if they'd have lost to three good teams. Now they ended up, going 10-2, but there's a world in which I go 12-0. I only beat one good team, but I was so incredibly dominant that you can't ignore how good we are because our schedule wasn't hard. And what is the mathematical way to do that? That I don't know. But that to me is I would say if I was football commissioner and I was football king and making those decisions, I'd want to hire people that mathematically can figure those things out. But my directive would be, we need to find a way to combine who you beat and how you beat them. And I would very much also, the third ingredient is I'm going to find a way to give a boost to teams that schedule well out of conference. I'm going to give you a lot more credit for having a tough non-conference than I am going to necessarily say, well, yeah, you had a tough in-conference schedule. If you have a tough conference schedule, but you play a bunch of bums, and then how you play matters. Like, look, Texas, I'm going to give you a lot of credit for playing at Ohio State, but that credit gets cut off when you go lose by 25 to Georgia and lose to a 4-8 Florida team. I'm no longer going to give you credit for that. But I also, if you replace Ohio State with Ohio, I'm going to still ding you because your non-conference was soft. You can't lose by 25 and then get beat by a 4-8 team and then say, yeah, but we're 10-2. Yeah, but your schedule non-conference sucked and you got blown out and you lost to a bad team. How do you formulate all that? I don't know the answer to that. I just know that's what you need to figure it out. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I agree. I love the non-conference aspect. Another thing that I would put weight into, and again, I have no idea how to calculate it. Maybe some of it's just as simple as eye test. But I'm not putting any weight into garbage time points for or against your team, because that's something that we saw play out this year. I mean, Notre Dame allegedly got dinged for allowing some late touchdowns against Stanford and one against Syracuse. But then Miami got rewarded for throwing a touchdown with 20 seconds left against Virginia Tech and like 42 seconds left against one of the Pitt, I think, that they played. So, like, relative to how the game played out, I'm not going to put weight into that. Not box score watching, none of that stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to find whatever system I need to put in place at a team that has minus 3,500 odds on FanDuel to make the playoffs doesn't miss it at the end of the day.
I will say this as well. You also, if you play an FCS team that's ranked outside the top 15, you get no credit for that win. The only way you get credit for an FCS win is if you beat a team that finishes in the top 15. So Miami is 9-2. Alabama is 9-3 in my system. Stop playing bet now. If you're Kansas State and you're 10-2, one of the teams you beat is South Dakota State or North Dakota State or Montana, or you beat Illinois State, because like, who was it that beat Illinois State? Somebody beat Illinois State. Who was it? Let me go look at Illinois State's schedule. So like Illinois State, I believe, is still in the semifinals, right? So they played Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I would give Oklahoma credit for that win, because beating them is better and more impressive than beating at Kent. Like, that's more impressive than beating Kent State. That's more impressive than beating Charlotte. That's more impressive than Georgia beating Charlotte. You know what I'm saying? So, like, you have to beat a team that finishes in the top 15 for the FCS to get credit for that win. So you better not schedule some bummy FCS team that Savannah State or somebody that stinks all the time. If you're going to play an FCS team and you want it to count, then you need to – and the stats from those games also would get removed. That's what I would do, because I'm not opposed to playing FCS teams. As I've said before, back when JMU was an FCS team, they would win games against Virginia Tech, teams like that. So I'm okay playing those teams, but you better hope that team is good, because otherwise it just doesn't count. So that's something else that would factor into it as well. B Plant says Oklahoma beat Kent State too. And that's kind of my thing, is the Illinois State win matters a whole lot to me than beating Kent State did.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But I'll give Oklahoma a pass for playing Kent State, because they also played Michigan. So they would get credit for me. They'd be 10-2, and I'd give them credit for that. So those would be the things that I would factor into this conversation.
Fair.
Yep. So, and who you lose to does matter. It does. So, Trev, real quick, I do want to address, I do want to dive into the Teddy Gerard stuff just briefly before we kind of finish this out, because I do know that's something that people are going to want to talk about. But obviously, it was announced, Hayes Fawcett just announced that Teddy Gerard told him that his reclassification is gone to Notre Dame. So I can now kind of share this. It's out there. Had a good chat with one of his family member of Teddy a couple weeks ago. We told you guys on the premium board at the time that it's not a done deal. We think it's trending in that direction. There was basically Teddy has a desire of, and I don't know if they want the specifics out, but I can get this out. The family had a academic path that Teddy was adamant that he wanted to follow. He was willing to wait until next year to enroll at Notre Dame if he couldn't get cleared to follow that academic path. It wasn't like holding him hostage. It was, look, this is the academic path he wants to follow. He knows it's challenging. He knows it's not an easy path, but it's the one he wants to follow. And if enrolling early means he can't follow that academic path because the family understands, like as the person I talked to said, like, you know, you play 10 years in the NFL and you have a great career, you're in your mid-30s and you've got to find something else to do with the rest of your life and to, you know, do something with your money. They value the education piece. And if Teddy couldn't follow that path, then he was going to wait a year and enroll early. So they had to work that out. By him announcing he's enrolling early, that tells me that got worked out. And that's what it is. So this is not something Notre Dame does very often, but it speaks to how good of a student that Teddy Gerard is.
Yeah.
He's a very good student. So that's why they were able to make this work. What does this mean for Notre Dame? Well, it means that they now have two quarterbacks in the 26 class. You've got a kid who I don't know what Teddy Gerard's grade is going to be. I don't know that the schools have necessarily I don't know if the school has, if not the schools, but I don't know if the networks have regraded him and where would he grade in the 2026 class. I would imagine that's going to kind of happen over the next couple days. I'm actually going to go see if any of them have done that yet. But my guess would be is that he won't change too much in those classes. He was ranked 79th in Rivals. He was ranked 70th on ESPN. He was a 3-star by 247. I would imagine he's still in the top 100-ish range for both of them that have him in there. Does he fall a little bit? I don't know. Obviously, he's going to rank higher than Noah Grubs is going to rank. So I think this does nothing but help Notre Dame's standing from a class standpoint. So how much? We'll see. It just depends on what the ultimate ranking is. But I would assume, Trev, that this is something that will certainly have a very positive impact for Notre Dame from the standpoint of being able to kind of put a chokehold on that highest rank, that number one class from 2026. So right now, their industry ranking for Notre Dame is number 2. They're behind USC. They're ahead of Oregon. Notre Dame ranks 4th on the average rating. I would imagine that'll also go up a little bit. But in the On3 Rivals, their own team ranking, so like not the industry rankings, which is going to get dragged down because of 247, they're number 1, as I've stated the other day. Alabama's at 92.684. They're number 2. Notre Dame is at 93.526 score. Alabama is closer to number 8 Texas A&M than they are number 1 Notre Dame. This is only going to cement that. So certainly impactful to see that this is being done. And it's not official, I mean, until Notre Dame announces it, but Teddy's telling people that means he got word from Notre Dame that it's going to be a done deal. So why did Notre Dame want to do this? Let's just talk about this real quick. Are they doing this because they don't have faith in Noah Grubs? Are they doing this because they don't have faith in Blake Hebert? And they think Teddy's so good that he's going to come in and be that guy? No, that's not really it. Basically what it is this. Notre Dame believes that if CJ Carr is going to be the player they think he is, there's a chance that he's gone after next season, which means their quarterback battle that's going to rage after CJ's gone is they want to be between Blake Hebert, Noah Grubs, and Teddy Gerard. If Teddy Gerard is an incoming freshman in 2020 going into 2027, he's not going to be as prepared to put his best foot forward. And they want all three of them to be in position to put their best foot forward. I had a conversation with the Gerard family, and I asked them flat out, and I'm telling you all this. This was an off-the-record conversation that I've asked permission to mention this part when the time comes. What promises did the Notre Dame coaching staff make you? And I asked this. I followed up multiple times. A chance to compete for the starting job. That's it. That's it. And it was explained to them, we think that this gives him his best shot to win that job, because if he's an early enrollee freshman going into his junior year Blake Hebert and year 2 Noah Grubs, he was going to be behind. This gives them the best chance. It doesn't mean that he's gonna be the guy, but obviously Notre Dame thinks he's got a chance to be the guy. Otherwise, they wouldn't be fighting to get him in. But basically, they want whoever wins that job to have their best foot forward and be able to do that. I also spoke with the Noah Grubs family when this first got announced that this might happen, because I was like, did they tell Noah this? Like, why did they wait till signing day for this to start leaking out? I was insured by the Grubs family. They were aware of it, and they understood it, and was also told by the Gerard family that when Teddy visited last summer, Noah Grubs spent a lot of time with Teddy trying to convince Teddy to come to Notre Dame, to the point where when Teddy was doing his individual workout, Noah was catching throws for him. He was helping him with the workout. Noah wants to compete. Teddy wants to compete. They both knew this was a possibility. They both knew they were going to have to compete against each other at some point in time anyway. And I was told that the Notre Dame staff was honest with the communication with Noah Grubs. When you combine that with the fact that the Gerard family is telling me and others that we were not promised the starting job, nothing more than a chance to compete, it tells me that the staff was upfront with everyone involved about why they wanted to do this, and I support that. That was my only concern, was did they wait till after signing date to tell the Grubs family this is what they were doing? That would have been shady. I was informed by the Grubs family that was not the case. They were well aware of it. It didn't change Noah's plans at all. And so kudos to Noah Grubs for knowing this could happen and still wanting to be at Notre Dame, but also kudos to Teddy Gerard for going to a place that has Blake Hebert and Noah Grubs and being willing to compete. So I think it says a lot about all those young men. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows kind of what's going on. I've heard some people say, did Notre Dame kind of screw over Noah Grubs? I had that same concern. But I was assured by the Grubs family that was not the case, and that they were made aware of what was going on. And so was the Gerard family. So very fired up about this opportunity. You know, like, because here's the debate that the Gerard family had. Do we have him play one more year of high school, where obviously he's going to start every game and do all those things, which is good for him, playing is good for him, or does he go to Notre Dame, get in the Notre Dame strength program? Now, he won't be able to enroll until the summer, so he'll be with the team all next year. He won't be here this spring. But, run the scout team, maybe with some others, get coaching from Notre Dame, have his basic game work be playing on scout team, not Friday night high school football games. And I think the family believe that being coached by Gino Gaduli for an extra year, getting that extra year in the strength program, running the scout team against the Notre Dame defense was going to be more beneficial to his growth than starting Friday nights at North Cobb.
That makes sense.
I don't know if I agree or disagree with that. I think there's pros and cons to both of those decisions, but that's what the family had to weigh. At the end of the day, I think they felt that this was going to be best for his development, to be at Notre Dame, to put him in a position to where, and it's not a given that CJ is going to leave, and they all know that. They all understand that it's not a given that CJ leaves. If CJ doesn't leave and everybody stays, then you're even better positioned for that battle to rage, going into 2028. But I just wanted to get it all out there, lay it all out. This is kind of how it went down. And I appreciate it. I mean, I literally went from talking to someone in Teddy's family to immediately being on the phone with somebody in Noah's family. And I was happy to hear that, for the most part, what one family was being told is basically the same thing the other family was being told. They weren't telling Teddy one thing and Noah another thing. And I appreciated that and respected that. So that's why these guys are making this decision. And so there's going to be a fierce battle over the next year for who's the next guy. And now everybody's going to be able to, kind of have their best foot forward. Does Noah Grubs get a little bit of a head start? Yes, he does. I mean, this spring, he's going to be a positive head start. But the other thing, too, is Teddy Gerard's also older. So he has a birthday similar to mine. I actually went through this, Trevor, where I turned 19 in May, right when I was about to graduate. Because where my birthday was, I could start school at this time. So I was always like, a little bit older than people in my class. Teddy's that way too. Teddy will be 18 all of his was going to be 18 all of his senior year of high school. So he'll turn 18 before he enrolls at Notre Dame. So he's a little bit older, and that was factored in by the family as well. That he is on the a little bit the older side, so he is being a little bit more physically developed. He's a great student, so I think they felt that he could handle that. So I just like those are similar things to me. So just wanted to get all that out there about what went into this decision, why, and what kind of players Notre Dame getting. We've already broken that down. He's raw. He needs some work, but he's very talented. He has a very big arm. And so I think I get why Notre Dame want to do it. I'm just generally not a fan of kids reclassifying. That's just me personally and I was actually asked this question by the fan member I spoke with, like what my thoughts were. And I said, look, I have a general opinion on it. I'm generally I'm not for it because I just want kids to this is your last chance to be a kid. At the same time, if you have that desire, and that's your goal and your dream and you're all comfortable, go for it. You know what I mean? Sure. You've got to because I have this general rule, but rules don't always apply to everybody. You know what I mean? Like your situation may be different. If Teddy was 16 and wasn't going to turn 17 until May, I'd be like, let the kid develop. But because he's already about to be 18 and he'll be 18 by the time he enrolls in Notre Dame, he's going to be the same age as a lot of the kids that he's going to be coming into Notre Dame with. He's older than Tiki Hola. So I think those things factored into where I understood why the family was like. I felt a lot better about why he was making the decision after talking to his family than I did going into that conversation. So that's my opinion. That's my opinion. And to answer a question, because I know this is obviously going to be the Ash Johnny 50S53. What does Notre Dame do for a QB in the 27 class? I think they open the board back up, obviously. But I think they'll be patient with that. Because I think in some ways they're still going to kind of count Teddy as a 27 quarterback. But I do think they'll still keep their eyes open for a 27 quarterback. Knowing that there's a good chance when that battle happens, they're going to probably lose one of those guys. At least one of those guys. So I do think they will still look for a 27 quarterback. I just think right now the focus has been on Teddy, not so much who do we replace him with in 27. But I do think they have a pretty good idea of who they're going to look at.
Good deal. Super chat from Bob43 Crable. Appreciate the super chat. Is Jacob Rodriguez really good at linebacker? Have you guys watched him at all? What's your take on the Texas Tech linebacker?
Go ahead, take a shot at that, Trev, because I know we've both watched him.
Yeah. He's a very instinctive player. Like, I don't want to paint this picture that he's, athletic or brings the same physical traits to the table as what Kingston Viliama-Asa does. That also doesn't mean that he's a stiff at the linebacker position either. I really like him. The biggest thing that sticks out to me is we talk all the time in the Notre Dame recruiting breakdowns about how this guy's just a really good football player, not just a physical specimen. And that's what Jacob Rodriguez is. He's a deep understanding of the game, very deep understanding of the game. And he's having a season, kind of very similar to what Manti had in 2012. He's always around the football. His impact is felt. He's the leader of that defense. He's able to bring guys together. I'm a big fan of him at linebacker. I truly am. So those are kind of my initial thoughts.
Super instinctive, quality athlete. Like he's a little bit more athletic than people give him credit for. Pretty physical kid. Good range, smart, just always in great position. He doesn't like Manti. Manti didn't have all those turnovers because he got lucky. He was in the right position a lot of times because he was so smart. And Jacob Rodriguez is a very similar player.
Super chat from Tyler Evans. Appreciate you, man. How did your conference predictions go that you did last offseason? And what was your best take and worst take?
Kansas State winning the Big 12. That was my worst one. I had Kansas State and TCU playing in the Big 12. That was my worst take. I had Clemson in the playoffs. That was a pretty bad take. I think my SEC championship game, I think I had Alabama and Georgia, but I had Alabama winning because I thought Alabama was going to be better than they were. I think that's who I had. And then Big Ten, I don't remember who I had in the Big Ten. I don't know if I had Ohio State and Oregon or Ohio State and Indiana. But I had Indiana as a preseason top 10 team. I think I had Ohio State and Oregon. And then Indiana was my third team. So I had the top three right. I think I had Oregon like 7th or 8th. And then I had Indiana 9th, I think is what my top 10 was. So I wasn't too far off in the Big Ten. I think I had Miami and Clemson in the ACC title game. So one of those should have got one of those right. I did not see Virginia's turnaround coming at all. I definitely didn't see Duke at 7-5 playing for the ACC championship.
No.
Yeah. So like I mean, some of the playoff teams I got right. I got Texas A&M right. I had them as a playoff team. I think I had Miami as a playoff team. I had Navy as my G5 rep. No, Vince did. I don't think I did.
You did too. Did
I have Navy as well?
Navy. Yeah.
I wasn't too far off on that one. I think Navy is probably 3rd or 4th in that breakdown. But I'm trying to think who I had Bama in. I had Kansas State in, so I was way off in the Big 12. Trying to think who else. Like I said, I had Clemson in the ACC. I was way off on that one. I think I had Georgia in, so I had that one right. I had Indiana in. I'm pretty sure I had Indiana in. I have to go look it up, but Big 12 is the one I got way wrong. And I think ACC obviously got way wrong either. I had no thought of Duke and Virginia playing against each other. I think I got the SEC correct, and I was close on the Big 10. I don't remember. I think I had Oregon because I had Oregon winning at home against Indiana. That's what my tiebreaker was. So I'm pretty sure I had Oregon against Ohio State and then Indiana 3rd. And obviously I got that wrong.
Yeah, I was all over the place with mine. I mean, I predicted Clemson to go undefeated and win the ACC and have the number 1 seed in the playoffs.
A lot of people did.
So got that way wrong. I predicted Penn State to go undefeated in the regular season and then lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Got that way wrong. I had Arizona State and Kansas State in my Big 12 championship game. That one was a bust. I did have Georgia, Alabama in my SEC championship game. And then I think I had Georgia winning. So I got that right. I mean, honestly, another one that I got just kind of way off, if we're just going on how the college football season played out, I also had Notre Dame going undefeated and having the number 2 seed in the college football playoffs. And they lost twice in their first 2 games and didn't even make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I got that one way wrong too.
Team we had winning it all didn't make it.
Yep. And then playoff teams, my G5 rep was Boise State.
They weren't super far off.
No.
Like if their quarterback doesn't get hurt, they actually probably have a better shot at being in because they would have only had the 3 losses, one being to Notre Dame.
My playoff prediction was relative. Well, I don't want to say relatively close. It was significantly closer than what my conference championship predictions were. So I think I also had A&M in the playoffs. I don't think I had Miami in, but I had Bama in. I had Ohio State in. I had Oregon in. So playoffs were closer than what the conference championships were. That's for sure.
All right. Got another super chat from Tyler.
Appreciate you, man. In your opinion, who are the top 5 quarterbacks in the transfer portal right now?
Oh, boy. If I was a team looking for a quarterback, here's the 5 that I would go with. I'd go with Brendan Sorsby from Cincinnati. I'd go with Josh Hoover from TCU. Gets a little tougher after that. I wouldn't touch Sam Levitt with a 10-foot pole. I wouldn't touch Dylan Raiola with a 10-foot pole. Are they super talented? Yes. Wouldn't touch either of them. I would talk to DJ Lagway. I'd be very concerned about his injury history. That would concern me a lot. I would be very interested in Kenny Minchie, but his lack of experience would be a concern for me. I'd probably put Kenny in my top 5. Aiden Childs has a ton of talent. I'd want to, get to know him more and kind of find out why he struggled the way that he did. But he'd probably be in that conversation. So the 5 I'd look at would probably be Brendan Sorsby, Josh Hoover, Kenny Minchie, Aiden Childs, DJ Lagway. I don't know that Drew Mestamaker would be on my list. I think he's more of a system quarterback. I think he thrives in that system. I don't know that he's going to come to my system and against the teams I'm going to play and be the same guy he was at the G5 level in the system like they ran. That's kind of where I kind of see that one. So I think he's a good player, but I think that's more of a system fit than anything else, Trev. I don't know if you agree with that or not. He ran that system very well, but I just think when they played 2, in my opinion, teams that had like legit Power 5-ish type of athletes on defense, South Florida and Tulane, and he threw 6 of his 7 interceptions in those games. He threw more picks than he did touchdowns in those games. I think that's telling. Threw for a bunch of yards, but that's kind of the nature of the system he plays in. But it was telling to me that he had that kind of lack of success playing against those 2 teams, who were the only 2 real and then he played against Western Michigan, who's a pretty decent team, pretty decent athletes, won the MAC. He went 18 of 33 for 224 yards, 6.8 per attempt. So that's where I'm at on that one. Those would probably be my 5. Look, Levitt and Rayola are very talented. I just need leadership at quarterback, and I don't think either one of those have any of that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Josh Hoover would be in my top 5. I would put Drew Mestamaker in my top 5 solely because I could just see him going to Indiana and just being the next kind of lower level quarterback that goes to Indiana and rips off a bunch of numbers. I would, to your point about him being a system fit, I can't see Drew Mestamaker going to Missouri and having a successful career.
Yeah. Do you know, I've had a couple people reach out to me, and then I also saw a couple reports last night. One of the players Indiana's zeroing in on, they've got a list, but I've heard a lot of the Josh Hoover kid jumped in with the thought that Indiana might be a likely destination. I think he'd also do very well. He'd do very well in that system as well.
I think so too. That'd be really good. Just from a talent perspective, I would say, if you can deal with I just don't have a better word for this, but if you can deal with the weirdness of Dylan Rayola, I think in the right fit, he would go. I think he would do well. I personally wouldn't touch him, but if we're talking talent, I'd probably put him in my top 5. Gosh, outside of that, Sam Levitt's not in my top 5 because I think he lived and died by the availability of Jordan Tyson. I think we saw that last year, and I think we saw that a little bit this year, in my opinion.
I think he's a very overrated quarterback.
Yeah.
Talented, but very overrated.
Yep. Decent arm, not a great arm. I think he thrived off of having a strong run game last year with Cam Scattaboo. And I think a lot of his production lived and died by the availability of Jordan Tyson. So Sam Levitt's not in my top 5 either. Just because I've seen him in practice and I know what his arm strength is, I want to put Kenny Minchie up in there. It's just I don't know what that's going to look like for him. So just pure tools, yeah, he'd be in my top 5, but that's tough. But
if I was working with a bit more of a tighter budget where I couldn't really afford to pay one of the proven guys, I'd be all over Kenny Minchie.
Oh, sure.
Because I don't think Kenny's probably going to demand the same kind of numbers that Sorsby and Hoover and Rayola and Levitt are going to demand.
Yeah.
You're getting a smart kid, you're getting a leader, and you're getting a kid that's talented, but you've got to deal with the lack of experience. So I personally would say, okay, let me go throw a lot of money at, let's say I'm Vanderbilt. Let me go throw a lot of money at getting a big-time receiver, and then I'll still try to get Kenny, but knowing I don't have to pay as much for him, whereas I'd have to throw a ton of money at a quarterback.
Sure.
That's assuming that Diego Pavia doesn't get a 13th year of eligibility for next year. But that's I would certainly do that. And somebody asked about there was a question down here. Somebody asked about Kenny. Pete Weber asked, do you feel outside programs view Minchie as a true QB number 1? I think teams do view him as having the talent to be a QB1. I think teams like Indiana's not going to probably look at Kenny Minchie. Not that they don't think he's talented, but they want a guy that's a proven quarterback that's played, that started. Like teams like that are title contenders are probably not going to have Kenny high on their list because they want, unless they miss out on some guys. But I think what you're going to see is some other P4 teams that know they can't get one of those top guys are going to be all over Kenny because they know the tools are there.
Yeah, for sure.
That's my 2 cents on that one. Good question, Tyler.
Getting into part 3 of the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. It's a Friday Free-For-All Mailbag, and our guy Andrew Burke is getting us kicked off with a super chat. Appreciate you, Andrew. Add one Notre Dame player to each of the top 10 playoff teams that would make them a stronger title contender. Once you use a player, they can't be used for other teams. That's a good caveat.
Ooh, yeah. One Notre Dame player for each team. Huh. So let's just kind of go top seed on down. What's the biggest need that Indiana would have that the Notre Dame roster could supplement for them? I kind of think, I mean, there's a couple areas I look at for Indiana. Number one is, I think, obviously,
I got
safety is one. Go ahead. If you got one, then go with it.
I'd give him Eli Raridan at tight end to go along with Omar
Ooh,
Cooper
yeah.
Jr. and Elijah Surratt.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know what type of production their tight end has right now, but I would probably give Indiana a 6'7", 252-pound tight end at, I mean, because I'm going and I'm looking right now of what their tight end has done so far this season, and I don't know if it's a whole lot. And Eli Raridan is an absolute weapon. Yeah, their tight end this season is 5th on the team in overall receivings. It's Riley Nowakowski. He has 25 receptions, 316 yards, 2 touchdowns. So I'd give him Eli Raridan.
That's a good one. So we'll go. So we've used Eli. Let's go to Ohio State. I think Ohio State's biggest need would be, honestly, I think they're pretty good on defense. I think the biggest thing for me, Ohio State, is I think they could really benefit from having Jeremiah Love or one of Notre Dame's starting offensive linemen. I think that would be a big one for me.
I was thinking, like, give him Gerby Lambert, but put him at left tackle.
Or just wherever they have the biggest need.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. That'd be a good one. Georgia. Here's my one for Georgia. Boubacar. As a stand-up, like the way they use like Jalen Walker last year.
Yeah.
Put Boubacar now, because that's something that I think Georgia lacks. They don't have like a great, like they don't have those really dynamic edge rushers that they've had in past years.
I like that.
You know what I mean? Like CJ Allen, they're putting it like this. Their top 2 tackle for loss guys this year were, and their top 2 sack artists this year were inside linebackers. Like they only had 20 sacks all year. You put Boubacar on that defense, you now fix that. So this is freaking great. That's freaking awesome. Driver's ed teacher. Boubacar is the one missing ingredient that Georgia has. That would need, like that really 6'4", 250-pound, just stand up edge guy that can get after the quarterback.
Yeah.
I would absolutely do that one.
Yep. I like that.
Texas Tech. Here's mine for Texas Tech. Because I'm trying to like fit these the right way. Like, we can't use everybody. When I look at Texas Tech, I think their secondary needs can be had. We've talked a little bit about that. I would give them Leonard Moore.
Yeah.
That's where I would go. I think they've got good corners. I think if they can play a team that can protect the quarterback, they're in trouble.
Yep.
Because I think their secondary can be had. So I'm going Leonard Moore there. I've been holding this one for Oregon. The one thing that I think would really set Oregon over the top is a big, tall, vertical, contested catch winning boundary receiver named Malachi Fields. That's mine there. Trev, what say you?
Yep, I was saving Malachi Fields because I thought about Malachi Fields maybe for Georgia, because Georgia also doesn't have a wide receiver that's like a go up and get it type of guy. Like they have Zachariah Branch, they have Dylan Bell, but they have tight ends. They're underutilized this year. But I was like, maybe he's a big body presence in the boundary for Georgia. Love going with Boubacar there, and then immediately went to Oregon. Especially like I think DeCorian Moore and Evan Stewart are both questionable for the game tomorrow too.
Mm-hmm.
Now I don't think you're going to need them to beat James Madison, but
yeah.
That being said, giving them Malachi Fields would be huge.
Yeah, let's talk about Ole Miss. Who would you go with at Ole Miss?
I'd go Drake Bowen.
Okay.
I think they need a leader of the defense, a very productive linebacker, very rangy. Give him a 6'2", 235-pound captain in the middle of that defense, because that's the area of concern for Ole Miss, and it was with or without Lane Kiffin in this playoff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd give him Drake Bowen.
Okay, let's go to Texas A&M.
Wayne Miller said Marcus Freeman.
I was going to say that.
That's
I'm dead
so
serious.
funny.
I was going to say that. I was
That's
like, no,
awesome.
I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that. Good one, Wayne. All right, let's go, Trev. Let's go to Texas A&M. I want to hear your this because I have two here for this one. Go ahead. Give me yours.
I think behind that offensive line and combined with Marcel Reed at quarterback, I'd give him Jeremiah Love.
Yep.
I mean, I was waiting for a team to get J Love, and I think that'd be very good for them.
Yep, that's where I'm at. Here's these last couple are very interesting. Let's go Oklahoma.
Honestly, that's tough. That is tough. I'd probably give him CJ Carr.
Okay.
Just a quarterback that can make plays in the pass game, that can facilitate the football out to guys like Isaiah Sategna. Yeah, I'd probably give him CJ Carr.
I was going to give him Jadarian Price. I think they need a legit running back there. And Ben Arbuckle's offense wants that mobile quarterback that I don't know that CJ is, and I have a spot for CJ in the next one. I think giving them a legit running back with Mateer and the receivers they have, and Jadarian showed last year and this year he can make some things happen even when the offensive line doesn't block appropriately. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like I think Jadarian Price would be perfect for them because their offensive line doesn't have to always be perfect. But you'd be able to be having a running back like them and Mateer as a runner. You have a lot of things you got to worry about with that receiving core. I think that'd be huge for them. So you and I are different there. I also was holding this one. Alabama, this is where CJ Carr fits. I am not high on Ty Simpson. I think he's a nice coach's kid quarterback. You give me CJ Carr behind, like in Kalen DeBoer's offense with Ryan Williams and Jeremy Bernard and Isaiah Horton. Throwing the ball a bunch of times, like that would make them a lot more dangerous. Because you talked about it. In the games they lost, Ty Simpson had that look in his eyes. And I don't know if he's a guy that can kind of take you that way. So that's what would be mine for Alabama.
For the reasons that you talked about for Jadarian Price at Oklahoma, he has the ability to make people miss in the backfield and doesn't need the offensive line to play well. I would give Jadarian Price to Alabama.
Would they give him the ball?
I feel like they would have to in that situation. Look, man.
That's why I think Aeneas Williams might be a better fit here at running back because he can pass, block, and catch the football in the backfield.
No, that's true. No, that's a good point. I look at that offense
Alabama than it is disagreeing with you, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, look, man, Jam Miller's a fine running back. Like, he's, in my opinion, he's kind of a jag, just a guy. And the better running back of the two in 2024 went to Michigan. I'm sure we can all agree upon that. Justice Haynes, the better running back of the two, went to Michigan. I think if you give that offense a weapon like Jadarian Price in the backfield, that would almost force Kalen DeBoer's hand to run the football.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Somebody in the chat said, really? Simpson has been there? Oh, exactly. Exactly.
And their offense has
He's been their O, and that's why their offense is average. Their quarterback drives that offense, whoever it is. When they have an average quarterback, they're going to have an average offense. Put an elite quarterback in there, they're going to be way better on offense. Yeah, he has been their offense, which is why their offense has only scored over 30 points like once in the last month and a half.
I'm curious. Give me a second here. I'm going to look at what their over/under point totals are here real quick on FanDuel for the game tonight, because I guarantee you it's not high. I can actually almost promise you it's not going to be high. So for the games tonight, according to our friends over at FanDuel, the over/under did go back up to 40.5. Oklahoma's still favored by 1.5. Total points. Good Lord, where'd you go? There we go. For total points, goodness gracious, they have significantly more props out now that it's the playoffs. Oklahoma's over/under point total is 20.5, and Alabama's over/under point total is also 20.5. But
that's so gross.
It's plus odds for Alabama to, gosh.
That's so
a Kalen DeBoer-led offense. It is plus 100 for Alabama to score over 20 points.
That is really gross.
Good night. Who's next on the list? Miami?
Yeah.
Who would you give to Miami?
We can't give them somebody we haven't already done. Honestly, you know what I would do is I'd give him Anthony Knapp and let him slide inside. I think they're like one really good run blocker away. Or no. Tay Johnson.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I think their secondary is still a shaky area for them. I'd go Tay. Yeah, I'd go Tay Johnson for that one. Tay or Don. I think they need more of that rangy center fielder type of guy. Is more of what I think for them. I'm going to go Tay. Tulane, literally pick anyone. I mean, honestly, if I were to say Tulane, what could Tulane need to give them a chance to compete against a team like Ole Miss?
I mean,
I think I think linemen that can protect the quarterback. So pick Billy Shroud, Anthony Knapp, somebody there. A receiver that can make plays. Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse if healthy. One of those two guys. Jordan Faison's probably where to go.
I was going to give Miami Jaden Greathouse. Give Malachi Tony another compliment weapon.
Yeah, there you go.
And
Could you imagine Malachi Tony and either Jaden Greathouse or Jordan Faison together? It'd be fun.
Yeah, that sure would be. Sure would be.
Yeah. So Tulane and JMU, they need a lot more help than one guy. So, I mean, just pick anyone that's left on the board and you can be pretty darn good there. So
I guess going back to the super chat, I guess that's why it says to each of the top 10 playoff teams. I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. That was fun. Thanks for doing that. It's a good off-season one again as well, as we talk about. I like those off-season ones. Let me get to one up here. So we've got that one, 3 fastest players. Just trying to get to some more people that we haven't gotten to yet so far. We did Zach. Mr. Emil Wagner. Here we go.
Yesterday, you hinted at a poster that he wasn't wrong when you said that Moore got into it with Gray and did it all season. Could you elaborate on that, or did I take the response wrong?
You took the response wrong. What I said is he wasn't wrong in regard to the players being confused and questioning why they were doing what they were doing the first 2 games. That's what I was referring to, not the other part. So, yeah.
From Notre Dame Villain, what would you think of Manti Te'o?
And I think he's referring to Manti as a linebackers coach. I'm not a huge fan of hiring guys who have never coached to come in and coach. I think that's especially true in today's era where you can hire guys as analysts and to come in and work with people. If Manti wanted to coach, if Golden Tate wanted to coach, if pick a Notre Dame player that isn't playing anymore, that Zach Martin wanted to get into coaching, I would absolutely bring them back to Notre Dame. 100% bring them back to Notre Dame. But they'd be like assistants to assistants. I'd have Zach Martin learning under Joe Rudolph. I would have Golden Tate learning under Mike Brown. And the OC, and the, you know what I mean? I'd have Manti learning behind whoever you hire to be your linebackers coach. Those would be things like there's a lot that goes into being a coach that doesn't include just the game. Great, the game. Can you teach the game? Throughout the entire year, there's a lot that goes into being a coach that you have to learn that. And I think that's important to learn. So that's where I'm a big believer in that. Learn how to coach first. And now it used to be harder to do that a few years ago, but now that analysts can be on the field, which I think is great for the kids, more teachers, more people teaching them how to play the game is good. They had 20-something offensive linemen on the roster this year. Joe Rudolph cannot, in good conscience, coach all those guys. I don't know that 2 guys can. So they had like 3 guys working with the offensive line this year. I think the other guys, it was Rob Delaney was working. I mean, we'd see him at practice. He'd be taking kids here. And Joe, you need that in today's era. Well, it used to be because O-line rooms were so big that you'd always have your GA would be with your O-line. Well, running backs could, receivers coach could use an assistant. We got a GA that's working on the secondary. Well, what about, Al Washington and his 15 to 20 defensive linemen? You know what I mean? So, I think that it's great that they allow more kids to be or more coaches to be involved in day-to-day coaching of players. I always thought that was a great, a terrible rule. But now that you have those roles, that's where you bring in a Zach Martin. That's where you bring in a Manti. That's where you bring in a Golden Tate. If Troy Pride called Marcus Freeman and said, hey, look, not playing the NFL, I'm going to retire. I want to coach. Come in and learn under Mike Mickens for a few years, and learn the game, learn how to teach, learn how to coach, learn how to recruit, learn how to do all those things. And I think that would be tremendous. So I would absolutely bring Manti in, just not as my full-time linebacker coach. But would I bring him in to work under somebody else to groom to eventually take that job? Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
If that's what he wanted to do.
Big picture, because of the changes to coaching staffs, my opinion on this has changed slightly. And this is just my opinion, in the past, I was never the biggest fan of former players coming in and being coaches, only because I think that sometimes, especially if you were a high-level player, it's hard to coach what you were able to do. Like, a lot of people love it because of the relatability. And it's like, oh, well, it's hard for somebody and I'm just using him as an example. It's hard for a Deion Sanders to sometimes coach DBs up because it's well, this is what I did. And it's like, yeah, I can't do what you did. You're Deion Sanders. Right. That was always my concern. But now that there's additional levels that people can be, analysts, different types of assistants, I like that more now than I did, say, 5-10 years ago, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've said that about basketball and quarterbacks. Tom Brady can't teach what made him great. John Elway can't teach what made him great. Aaron Rodgers can't do that. Joe Montana can't really do that. Frank Reich could. You know what I mean? Those guys that were kind of the smart, I don't have the physical tools. It's not a coincidence that John Elway's backup was a Super Bowl winning coach, but John Elway was never a coach. You know what I mean? It's not a shocker that Jim Kelly's backup is a guy that went and was an NFL coach, not Jim Kelly. You know what I mean? So, and it's also why Larry Bird was a great coach, but Magic and Michael Jordan were not great. And a great executive, but Magic and Michael were not.
Yep.
Because even though Larry Bird was an elite talent, he still had to be more of the thinking man's game kind of thing. It was still his stuff was more relatable, or not relatable, relayable to a player than maybe what made Magic.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Shoot, man, even more recently, look at Tommy Rees. He's an offensive coordinator already in the NFL. But talent-wise, there's a lot of quarterbacks that he coaches that can do the same things that he did, if not better, especially at the college level. So, it just varies. I saw somebody in the chat put in, look at Colorado's whole staff. That's my point. You brought in Warren Sapp to coach your defensive line. It's you can't ask those kids to do what you did. You're Warren Sapp. And then it's not a mystery why Colorado has struggled.
Yep.
From ND Milton fan, how good was Lambert at the end of the season?
Very, I mean, still needs technical work, still needs to improve with his angles and things like that, but he was dominant by the end of the year. He was him and Anthony Knapp by the end of the year were very clearly their top 2 offensive linemen by the end of the season. Now, keep in mind, we didn't have Billy Shrouth at the end of the year. We didn't have Ashton Craig at the end of the year. But they were absolutely your 2 best guys.
From Johnny 3, did you see Noah Grubs ball out in the state championship game? How awesome was that?
Noah Grubs balled out the entire playoffs. And that Hail Mary at the end of the game to win the state championship was the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. If you all didn't see that, Trev, did you see that?
Sure did.
So he throws a Hail Mary. Ball gets caught by one of his receivers at like the 4. And he's being tackled. And as he's being ran around, he hands the ball off to the running back, who then runs in, or as a receiver or running back, one of his teammates who then takes it from like the 3 and runs it in for a touchdown. Craziest thing I've ever seen at the end of the game.
Especially in like a state championship game, man.
Yeah. And it was so dumb. Like, did you see what the team did to take they kept running backwards like 10 yards to take a knee to run clock off. So when they eventually punted, they were punting from like 30 yards further back, which is even what put them in position to take the Hail Mary. It's just like, wow, okay, whatever. But Noah was spectacular the entire playoffs. He really was.
From more handsome Audrey Denson, why has some mass portal teams worked, like Indiana, while others, Colorado, have failed?
Well, I think a big thing with Indiana, as we've mentioned, is they went out and got a lot of the initial recruiting class from the portal was JMU players. So when he showed up, there was, I think it was like 15 guys that knew exactly who Signetti was. They knew what Bryant Haynes was. Aiden Fisher started at JMU, so he knew the defense. He could coach it to the other non-JMU, transfer linebackers. You had offensive linemen that knew what they were like. So you were bringing with you, you were importing a culture. Think about who Deion Sanders brought with him from Jackson State. His son, Travis Hunter. With all their great talents, but they're not culture builders. You know what I mean? And then he's out there getting this 5-star recruit, this former top recruit, and he's bringing a lot of egos. Where when you look at a lot of the guys that Indiana has brought in, there's some guys that came from big schools, Pat Coogan, but Pat Coogan was not your like highly ranked big time recruit that came in with this ego of like, hey, I came from Notre Dame. I mean, D'Angelo Pons came from James Madison. They got another DB, Amorian Knighton's a good player. He's from Northern Illinois. Mikhail Kamara, their stud defensive end, he came from James Madison. He's another one of those. Stephen Daly, who was the kid that was also all Big Ten this year, wasn't he? Wasn't Stephen Daly also all Big Ten for them this year? Let's see here. No, that was not the one. Who was the other really good defensive lineman they had this season? Give me a second. I'm pulling up the stats. They had 2 linemen that were all Big Ten this season. Just give me a sec. I'm going to find it here. It was, Stephen Daly. Yeah, that's who it was. I thought that's who it was. He had 19 tackles for loss for Indiana this year. He came from Kent State. Let's go through. Let's see here. Tyreek Tucker, Kent State. They went out and got Aiden Fisher from JMU. Elijah Hardy. He was, I think he went to JMU and also Navy, the Naval Academy. They got Drew Evans, offensive line from Wisconsin. They got an offensive line from Ohio State. He didn't pan out. They got Pat Coogan, Grant Wilson, one of their backup quarterbacks from Old Dominion, Fernando. I did it again. I'm literally reading from the roster Fernando, and out of my head, I said Francisco. I have no idea why I keep doing that. Fernando Mendoza is from Cal. Roman Hemby from Maryland. Kalen Black from JMU. Lee Beebe, another one of their running backs from UAB. So, I mean, a lot of these guys they got were not big-time players. They weren't from big-time programs. EJ Williams came from Clemson. He was a great pickup, but he was a guy that had battled injuries. He was just looking for another chance to play. And then Elijah Surratt came from James Madison. Where if you look at Deion's roster, he's getting guys from Oregon. He's getting guys from – I mean, he's getting these kind of big-time egos, and they just couldn't build a culture there. Where Curt Cignetti imported an already ready-made culture, which made it easier for him to instill that culture. And so I think those are things that really factor into why I think he was able to make that work in ways that other people couldn't. Is that fair?
Oh, extremely. I mean, schools like Colorado, yeah, the recruiting stars or the recruiting rankings are nice. But the flip side of that coin, and the side that I always look at is, yeah, you got a 5-star recruit from Georgia. Why didn't they play? It's not like Georgia's not used to playing 5-star recruits. Why didn't Oregon play this 5-star corner? Isn't that where a lot of cornerbacks go that are 5-star recruits that are good? Why didn't they pan out? And then some fans are shocked at the fact that it's like, yeah, the locker room's in shambles. It's like, really? I feel like there's a reason why players like that transfer and don't work out at the top premier schools. And so that's a blanket statement. Some others it's due to injury. Others it's due to, unforeseen circumstances. But by and large, that's how I look at it.
Good stuff. All right. Here's one from Brandon Plesner.
Is Will Black even going to be ready to start this fall? Have we even seen anything from him?
Yeah, we have. I mean, he played in one game or 2 games, and he looked pretty good in those 2 games. He played 2 because he played tackle one game and then played guard another game, and he looked very good. So will he be ready? I don't know. I mean, hey, look, Joe Rudolph told us that he was ready to play tackle the day he showed up at Notre Dame. He already knew he could play tackle. That's why they moved him to guard. So
facts.
I would imagine so. I'm just going to say this. Fans that are getting their hopes up that Will Black's going to start next year, I'd say pump the brakes on that. That's my dream class, but I just want to see – or that you're going to see him at left tackle. There's a better chance he starts at guard than left tackle based on Joe Rudolph's decision-making so far. I hope I'm wrong, but either way, I mean, Will Black's a talented player.
Yeah.
He can help you. Will he be ready to start? He'll have to earn that job. I think he's ready to compete. But he's going to have to beat out some other good players to win that job. Matty Augustine's not going to just roll over and let Will Black pass him up a tackle. You know what I mean? Like, Sullivan Absher's not going to just like, well, I had my shot. Guess I'm going to give it up to somebody else. Like, he'll compete. He'll compete.
From Play Like a Champ, have we crossed a point of no return with the transfer portal? Could competent college football leadership find a solution to encourage roster continuity, or would any proposed rule be viewed as anti-player?
Any proposed rule would be viewed as anti-player, and the reality is the only way to fix, quote-unquote, fix the current system is the one thing that I don't want to do to fix the current system, and that's to make players employees. I'm adamantly 100% against making them employees. And there's a million reasons why. We could do a whole show on it. But at the end of the day, essentially, you make them employees, and there's dangers to them. There's dangers to you. There's definitely dangers to the academic situation. You're not paying a guy to be an employee to go to class. They already have enough of that problem that exists now. But at the same time, you're not going to fix all these things until you can collectively bargain, because every time you try to pass a rule that you don't collectively bargain, someone's going to sue you and you're going to lose.
Right.
And that's what sucks about the system. And every time you lose, it makes the problem worse and worse and worse. And you have no leadership structure that has the balls to do anything about it. And you have no leadership structure that has the authority to really do anything about it that is going to hold up in court. Sadly.
Unfortunately.
Yep. Yep. Let's see here.
From Josh Buffo, the motivational business banker. Start, bench, cut these recruiters. Mickens, Coach McCullough, Brian Hartline.
Buy Mike Mickens because he's at Notre Dame. Hold Dylan McCullough because I love Coach McCullough, but he's not at Notre Dame anymore. I'm selling Brian Hartline because I don't care about a coach that coached for another team.
Fair enough.
I mean, look, they're all great recruiters and they're all great coaches. This is a win-win-win. So that's why I'm taking Josh, I'm taking a little bit of a funny angle with it. You know what I mean? I'm going to take the guy that wants to be at Notre Dame, right? But those are three of the best in the business. And you have any of those guys on your staff, you've got a great coach. That's it. So we asked the question about Indiana and Colorado earlier. I think Sloppy Joe had a great comment. Indiana's gone for best fit with the culture, and that's a great point. Now, they still brought in talented players, but they're looking more at, do you fit the culture we're trying to build here? And I don't know that Coach Sanders has really worked hard to establish any kind of true culture in the program. It was always about other things. Hopefully he can fix that, but it's also been hard for him to do that because he's dealing with so many things off the field when it comes like his health. And I mean, he doesn't really go, like a lot of people give him a lot of hard time for not going and visiting kids, but part of that's medical. I mean, part of that's a medical decision that he doesn't go on the road and recruit and things like that. It's really hard to, you learn a lot about a kid when you do an in-home visit. You learn a lot about, because you learn a lot about a kid when you go visit the school in the spring.
Yeah.
Because you get a lot of that. What kind of kid is this? What kind of family does he come from? That stuff matters. And it's hard to do that when you can't do the same things that other people do, partly because of your own health issues that you're dealing with. So that's one of the big struggles that Colorado's dealing with right now. All right, let's get to this one from Archer. Let me see here.
Of all the college football media types who put out bracket picks, given how bad Barrett Sally's was or is, why is he still getting paid to talk about college football?
I don't know what his is. I don't follow him on Twitter, I don't believe. Let me go look and see what his is. But wasn't he used to be affiliated with ESPN? So let me see here. So he has Oregon beating Texas JMU. He has Oklahoma beating Alabama, Ole Miss winning, and he's got Miami winning. Then he has Miami beating Ohio State, Georgia beating Ole Miss, Oklahoma beating Indiana, and Oregon getting beat by Texas Tech. So he literally has the Big Ten losing all their quarterfinal games. And then he has Texas Tech beating Oklahoma, Georgia beating Miami, Georgia winning it all. Yeah, that's a pretty bad bracket. That's about as a homerish of an SEC bracket as you can get other than the Miami A&M one.
Yeah, I mean, dude's like from Atlanta. He does stuff for like the Atlanta Braves, like radio network. I'm shocked that he picked a college team from Georgia to win the Natty, but that bracket's terrible.
And he's on a radio station that I'm looking at this thing that covers Georgia football. So yeah, shocker.
From more handsome Audrey Denson, Brian, did you get to see the Rocket play live? If so, how fast was he live? Was he the fastest player you've ever seen?
I mean, on TV he was. Unfortunately, I never saw Rocket play in person, only on TV. Now, talking to Loose Emoji, he said that he's without a doubt the fastest player he's ever seen. So, I mean, he had incredible speed, but I never saw him play.
For Brandon Plensner, is Notre Dame still prioritizing roster retention in your opinion, or are they more willing to let some of that key depth go elsewhere?
Brandon, I'm really hesitant to answer this question because I'm still trying to put together all the facts of what's going on right now. But I unfortunately think there's a little bit more willingness to lose players and process players than I would like. I think Mike Martin has a little bit more of a desire to go to the portal for guys than I would like. I do think that right now Notre Dame is pursuing a portal running back. I don't think that they should. And I think part of that is, Mike Martin doesn't have a whole lot to do with high school recruiting other than the NIL deals. And so, a lot of his talent acquisition is going to happen in the portal. And then you're going to say he's going to bring in 3 or 4 guys like that. You know what I mean? That's kind of what you're bringing him in for. So I worry about that. I worry about how that structure is going. That troubles me. And I'm concerned that maybe has a little bit too much say on what they do in the portal. But again, it's still very early. I got to talk to more people. I got to see how this process plays out. So I know that they say they still care about prioritizing the roster, but I think that they're more willing to let some guys walk than I would probably prefer. But again, that's very early. Let's see how this next month goes. I'll have a much better sense of that over the next month.
From Trevor Rocket, our friend from up north, Brian, Trevor, one guy on each side of the ball who is a sleeper to surprise in 2026.
Surprise on each side of the ball in 2026. Well, I like to think that Notre Dame fans aren't surprised by, or Irish Breakdown fans aren't surprised by anything because we do such a great job of letting you know all the potential breakout players. But I will say that my surprise in 2026, if I had to go with a surprise, Nolan James Jr., if he's still on there. I mean, again, I don't know what's going to happen with a lot of portal guys, so I guess these are all caveats. I say Nolan James Jr. or Cam Williams. That'd be my two on offense. Who's your offensive guy, Trev? And then tell me your defensive guy. We'll kind of go like this. We'll snake it a little bit.
Gosh, offensive guy in 2026. I'm gonna go with one of the freshman running backs. I think Javian Osborne is gonna make some impact this season. I think that he's gonna crack his way into the rotation.
Would that be a surprise?
Potentially, just because he's never played in college.
Sure.
I mean, I don't really know who else I could go with. I mean, maybe somebody along the offensive line, but again, I just don't know who else is going to start. Maybe
you can go with Javian Osborne. I just was kind of thinking like top 100 recruit playing as a freshman. I don't know. Would that be a surprise? If you think it would be, then let's go for it.
I think it would be for everything that's in front of him. I mean, question of who he's taking reps away from. That's what would be the surprise, but not that he'd be good. I mean, obviously a top 100 recruit's going to be good, but outside of that, maybe trying to think of another offensive player, maybe just because he hasn't gotten talked about enough because he got hurt, like maybe like a Cooper Flanigan just has a really good season as a tight end. A lot of people are already talking about what James Flanigan's going to do, or if Ian Premer can come in and start taking reps right away. Maybe Cooper Flanigan has something to say about that. I can see it being a surprise. What about you on defense?
My big surprise on defense, there's a few guys that I've kind of thought through on this one, but I think the surprise next year on defense is going to be Armel Mukam. I think Armel is going to have a breakout offseason and become a big factor for Notre Dame. If it's not him, it's going to be Chris Burgess's emergence as a factor for them next year. One of those two guys I think will surprise some people as an impact player. Give me one of those two, and I'll feel good about it.
Yeah, I was going to go with one of the interior guys as well. I was going to go with like a Davian Dixon. He's a big-bodied kid. He fills a need of that plugger type of defensive tackle. Definitely one of the bigger guys in the room, so I was going to go with him. From Jay Melvin, non-Notre Dame question, but I wanted your opinion. Do you think it was dumb for Texas to get rid of their defensive coordinator? It wasn't the defense that was the problem last year.
I think that was Pete Kwiatkowski was the scapegoat for Texas's struggles because the offense was the problem, but you're not going to fire yourself as the offensive coordinator, and you're not going to fire Kyle Flood, who you've been with for a while. So who gets blamed? Somebody whose head's going to roll, and it's him. I mean, a year ago, and they also fired Dwayne Akina, the DB coach. Like, you're a year removed from having arguably the best secondary in college football. They were in the conversation.
They were
last season. And now you're just going to completely just chuck those guys. Like, I mean, a year ago, Texas had the number 7 pass defense in all of college football. They had the number 2 passer rating in all of college football. The only team that was better was Notre Dame. They gave up 9 touchdowns last year and had 22 interceptions.
Good
Texas
Lord.
did last year. So their pass defense took a step back this year. They weren't as good this year, but they lost almost their entire secondary. We told people in the offseason that they weren't going to be great on defense in that regard. So, but they still had the number 23 scoring defense in the country. They finished giving up less than 20 points a game. They were third. They were third last year, and you're gonna blame the defensive coordinator when your offense ranked 51st in scoring. I think I'm having a lot. Like, this is what I said last summer when Steve Sarkisian was starting to be like a top 3 all time. I said, can we let this guy like win something first? Because I've got some red flags about Steve Sarkisian as a head coach. Offensive coordinator, very good. Head coach, major questions. Is he Lincoln Riley or is he Steve Spurrier? Well, so far he's Lincoln Riley. And I think this is a perfect example of that. In the last 2 years, your defense ranked 3rd and 23rd in scoring defense. And you just fired the defensive coordinator. Like, yeah, I got a problem with that. Whereas this year, your offense, in the last 2 years, your offense ranked 29th and 51st in scoring. Your defense was better from a ranking standpoint this year in their down year than your offense was last year in your good year. So now maybe there was some blow up, but I just think somebody had to get blamed. You know, the donors are not happy that they didn't make the playoffs. They lost to Florida. They lost. Whose heads are going to roll? Well, you're not going to fire yourself. And that's the danger when the head coach is the one in charge of a side of the ball. If that side of the ball is not doing well, who's he going to fire? Himself? Billy
True.
Napier wasn't willing to do that. Steve Sarkisian's not willing to do that. You know, I mean, yeah.
That's a good point.
I think Pete Kwiatkowski was a scapegoat. That's what I think.
Another one from Brandon Plensner. Who are some potential big-time 2027 quarterback draft prospects outside of Carr, Arch, and Sayan?
Well, I mean, obviously, some of the guys, Jaden Maeva, I think, might have a chance next year. You know, the Darian Mensah kid announced today that he's going to go back to Tulane. I don't know how high he's going to be on the draft board. Trying to think through some guys that could be back next season.
If Dante Moore comes back, maybe
he'd be one. Yeah,
if Lenore Sellers takes a big jump, like just because of his physical tools, every single year.
The tools.
Yeah.
He's got the tools.
I watch Anthony Richardson go like 4th overall. I mean, if he can go that high in the draft, then so can Lenore Sellers. If
Dylan Raiola can find a coaching staff that can get him to get his head out of his, you know what, he's a kid that could be in this conversation. Because like the one thing about Dylan Raiola, I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. He's talented. Yeah. Sam Levitt wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole. He's talented. You know, he's got ability. I'm like, nah, bro. I'd pass on that. I don't need that. I don't need that drama in my life. I'm curious what kind of draft prospect Brendan Sorzu would be next year. I mean, he's a little bit older. He's more of a runner, you know, than he is a pure quarterback. He'd be one that I'd be very curious about.
I'd also say some of the other. I'd also say, depending on like what he does at, assuming wherever he goes, Trinidad Chambliss could be one of those guys.
Yeah, he's just so small. I mean, that's going to be the problem there. Is his size is going to hurt him. He's a good player, though, dude. He's a really good player.
I mean,
those are a lot of them.
Yeah, I could definitely see the comparisons with Trinidad Chambliss being that of like what Bryce Young did at Bama. Like if he's able to go to another SEC school, I mean, Bryce Young was like 5'10", 180 pounds.
Well, the thing that hurts him though is that Bryce Young is really struggling in the NFL, and
not this season. He's played well this season.
I can't say that I can argue with you how he's played. I look at stats, and I didn't find his stats to be overly impressive. So you could be right. Like I said, I don't watch the NFL, but I do like looking at numbers, and I noticed that he wasn't exactly lighting the world on fire, but I think he's 21st in the NFL in passing yards. He's 27th in yards per attempt. He's cut down on the interceptions, though, so that's good. Where's he at in rating? He is 24th in passer rating. I mean, I'll say this. It's definitely an improvement over what he's done. I don't know if I'd say it's like, okay, justified that number one pick. And I don't think he's athletic enough to like be like a Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray type of guy. Like he's not the powerful runner. He's really athletic, but he's not the powerful runner that like,
sure.
Kyler's a pretty well-built kid. So yeah, that'd be my concern, but he's got does he have 1 year left after this?
I think so, because he played 2 years at the D2 level, and then he was at Ole Miss, and then he's probably going to enter the transfer portal after this playoff. So,
which is disappointing, but not surprising at all. I get, because this is a coach that took a chance on you when not a lot of other people were taking a chance on you. Like, I actually understand him following Lane Kiffin there to LSU. That would be very interesting.
From Irish Dragon 23, what happened to Penn State for them to take such a big nosedive this season from how well they did last year?
I just don't think they handled success well. I mean, Trev, we've said this in the show. You and I talked after each of the first 3 games. Like, dude, they're winning convincingly, but like they don't look good. There just was something missing. Their offensive line wasn't as good as it was last year. Their defensive line had athletes, but they were just inconsistent. They clearly did not know how to run the Jim Knowles defense. Like, that was a big thing. Like, they looked confused a lot on defense early in the season, but they just played with like no fire, no folk. Like, I didn't even know. I'm like, who's this number 13 or was it number 10 at running back? I have no idea who this kid is. Like, well, that's Nicholas Singleton. No, it's not. I've seen Nicholas Singleton play. That's not that guy's wearing Nicholas Singleton's number. Yeah, but that's not Nicholas Singleton.
I think some of it too, like, I think Andy Kotelnicki got exposed a little bit as an offensive coordinator. Like, when he couldn't be super gimmicky with Tyler Warren and he had to call a legitimate offense, I think it got very okay. I think back to that play against Oregon where you motion the guy into the boundary where there's already a receiver to then run a wheel route stacked.
There's 2.
Like,
there's 2.
Yeah.
They brought a third guy into the boundary.
Yep.
So dumb.
Yep. Like, kind of like the Texas defensive coordinator. I think Drew Aller is used as a scapegoat for a lot. Like, I'm not sitting here to say like, oh, he played a great season. It was just the offensive coordinators. I think he gets overly hated. He also gets overhyped by some, but Andy Kotelnicki did not set him up for success this year.
Yeah, not at all. And I just don't think that team was able to handle sort of they didn't handle the failure against Oregon very well. And I think it just kind of like they kind of rolled the balls out the first 3 games. And we're just like, hey, we're Penn State. We're a semifinal team. We're preseason number 1. We're really good. And then they went out in that Oregon game at home and just lost in a really dramatic fashion after coming back from being down big. And I think they went out on the road the next week against UCLA and just thought they could roll the balls out again. And UCLA jumped on them. But then they also showed how good they are in coming back from down 27-7. And then once they lost that game, I think they just kind of quit. I think that team quit. I mean, look, if they'd have played against Northwestern and UCLA the way that they did against Oregon, they're 5-1.
I mean, honestly. Yeah. Well, and then they started to become more competitive towards the end of the year once it was just officially over, and then they could just be like, all right, well, what's there to lose? I think this season kind of perfectly embodied, to a degree. I think James Franklin is a head coach. Not only could they not handle success, they couldn't handle the expectation.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I love the fit with him at Virginia Tech is very rarely, if ever, is James Franklin going to go into a year as a head coach at Virginia Tech where the expectation is you better win the college football playoff semifinals. I just don't know if that's ever going to be the expectation for him at Virginia Tech. Make the playoffs, sure. But there were lofty expectations with Penn State this season, for sure.
Yep. Agree very much.
Another one from Irish Dragon. What are the odds of the West Coast teams returning to the Pac-12 because they are tired of traveling to the Midwest?
Like 0.00001%, because as long as the Big Ten's paying them that TV money, they're going to suck it up and deal with it. That's the only reason they did it to begin with. They knew that this was going to suck. Like, honestly, if anyone from those schools said, well, we had no idea how bad the travel would be, I say you're either a liar or you're so incompetent at your job that you should be fired on the spot. You did not do the homework to find out what your sports teams would have to be doing from a travel standpoint. You didn't know you'd have to go to New Jersey. You didn't know you'd have to go to Maryland. You weren't aware that you might actually have to go into Minnesota and Wisconsin and Iowa in the November. If you didn't know that, then you don't deserve to have the job that you have now. They knew.
Yeah.
They don't care. They did it for the TV money.
Yep.
So if they left the league, it would be for financial reasons, not because they're tired of traveling. They knew that was going to stop. That's why I think I get so annoyed when they cry about it.
Yep. I was just about to say, they're definitely still going to do it. There's a 0% chance that they go back to the Pac-12, but you better believe they're going to continue to complain about it.
Mm-hmm. Here's an interesting one, Trevor.
From Mark Rukavina. If ESPN wanted to do game day from Notre Dame next year for the Miami game, would you let them?
Yes. Listen, I despise ESPN as much as the next guy. That's still great exposure for your program. I'm going to use them like they're using us. Like, that's where I'm at. Okay, you want to use us? Fine, we're going to use you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, I get the desire to say screw you, but that you can't do the screw you thing to the point where it's hurting you.
Well, this kind of goes back to the point. It's like we as fans can have a certain rate. Like we can cancel ESPN subscriptions and Disney Plus subscription. Like Notre Dame is going to have games aired on ESPN next year. They can't take the path of like, well, we're just not going to play in those games. Like that's just that's where you kind of have to separate it a little bit. I think it would be great. And I would honestly bring on some players or a coach or have Marcus Freeman talk about it. It's like, yeah, ESPN probably should have let us in the playoffs last, just little slight jabs because they're already there. That's what's in their power in all seriousness.
Agree.
From Raymond Harton, do you approve the Chicago Bears moving to Indiana? What would you rename the team?
Well, I've heard this. Where would they move? Is it one of those like border towns?
Yeah, they said just northwest Indiana.
I mean, basically, you're just kind of crossing over. You're basically doing what the Redskins did, which is, I mean, they moved from D.C. to like Northern Virginia. You're still the Washington Redskins and the Washington Commanders or whatever their name is now. But like, they'd still be the Chicago Bears. This isn't like you're moving from Houston to Tennessee or from Cleveland to Baltimore. Like, you're still going to be the Chicago Bears. You're just going to be housed across the border so you can have better financial situation for your team.
I mean, there's a city in Northwest Indiana called East Chicago. I mean, they'd probably still be the Chicago Bears. I mean, both New York teams play in New Jersey.
Exactly. Exactly.
It'd be like one of those.
Yeah, they're not going to change the name. The only way they would change the name is if like they completely relocated to like somewhere else. Let's say, if they relocated to, I'm trying to think of a big city that doesn't have a football team, but like, there's no team in St. Louis anymore. So let's say they move to St. Louis. Oh, St. Louis Bears. Okay, cool. But moving to a city in Northwest Indiana that probably no one's ever heard of, you're not going to change your name to the Indiana Bears. You're still going to be Chicago. Because I think they would be stupid to do that, honestly. And if I'm that town in Indiana, I'm not going to demand that they change their name. Because you want that brand in your city, in your town. You want the revenue that comes. If they're willing to build a stadium in your area, think of the money that's going to come into your area from Chicago, from around into your community. I don't care if your name is whatever. You can name them the Northwest Indiana Bears. You can name them the, Suburban Bears. You can name them whatever the heck you want them as. But the reality is, what's the biggest brand name? It's the Chicago Bears.
Yep.
So I would not change the name at all, but I would gladly welcome them in because it would help the state financially.
Yep. Agreed. From John Stryker, do you think Franklin will have a 6-6 or better record next year at Virginia Tech?
Let's talk about that on like January 19th when I have an idea of what he's going to add in the portal. I don't even know what that roster is going to look like. Like, I'll just say this is a blanket statement, folks. I would just encourage. Look, we'll answer it as best we can, if we can. In this case, I really can't because their roster is going to get completely overhauled. It's best if you guys wait until after the portal closes and most guys have made their decisions before you ask us who's going to be good, who's not going to be good, what Notre Dame opponent are you concerned about? Like I usually after the season will do a looking ahead to the 2026 season article, and I'll have about the schedule, and we'll just briefly talk about this. I can't tell you what Notre Dame's schedule is going to look like next year, other than I can tell you the 12 teams on it. I don't know what Michigan State's roster is going to look like. I don't know Wisconsin's roster is going to look like. I don't know what Miami's roster is going to look like. I don't know which players are going to go to the NFL. I don't know which players are going to transfer. I don't know what players are going to transfer in. I don't know what North Carolina's roster is going to look like. I don't know what. You know what I mean? So just let's be a little bit patient on some of that because, John, I think that's a fair question. And part of me thinks that he's going to recruit well. So, I think he'll put a good roster together. I think they'll get kids out of the portal and all that other kind of stuff. So that would be my guess on that.
Yeah, right now they're over under win total on FanDuel. FanDuel only has 2 futures out for schedules. It's LSU's and Virginia Tech's. And Virginia Tech's over-under right now is 7.5. And I'm honestly kind of surprised it's that high because right now their schedule's pretty wicked. I'm not going to lie. Like they play, their first 3 games are they play VMI and Old Dominion and then at Maryland. But they play James Madison, Virginia. They play at Clemson. They play at Miami. They play at SMU. They host Georgia Tech. They host Pitt. It's a very, very interesting schedule for Franklin's first year.
Yep. Actually, there we go.
From Iden Benami, what do you think makes Coach Freeman and Coach Cignetti have the it factor or have the special ability to get kids to flip a switch of confidence in themselves? Their close relationship with players?
That's the biggest thing. It's not the motivational speeches. It's not. That the motivational speeches work because of the trust. You lose that trust, you can give the same exact speech and no one's going to listen. When they say like a coach has lost the locker room, that's exactly what they're talking about. We no longer trust you that you have the answers that we need for whatever reason. That's what it means to lose the locker room. So I'm giving the same speeches I gave last year when you guys all listened to me, but nobody's listening to me now. That's what that boils down to.
From Coleman Smith, more of my own opinion, but it sounds like the ACC meet was productive. However, I have this thought that Pete might get played.
Again, the only thing we have coming out of that is coming out from the ACC side. So I'm trying not to form an opinion. That's always a concern of mine. Trevor, you and I talked about this from the very beginning. We don't know how Pete Bavacqua is going to be. We're going to learn who Pete Bavacqua is through this situation. Up to now, we don't know who Pete Bavacqua is. My concern is the worst case scenario for me right now is nothing changes with the playoff committee. You basically get an apology from the ACC and a promise we'll never do it again. And you give in to USC at least for a few years and you schedule them in September. That's my fear of all 3 of those things happening. And if they do, then I will basically say Pete Bavacqua is not the guy for Notre Dame in these times. But if I'm wrong, or not even I'm wrong, I'm not even predicting those. I said that's the worst case. If 2 of those 3 things work out in their favor, then I'll say, okay, because of things Pete Bavacqua did, then I'll say, okay, he's proven himself to be a player in this situation. If only one of those 3 things happen, I'll say he's okay, but Notre Dame's not going to, this is not the Jack Swarbrick Notre Dame. It's whatever range of those big 3 things is going to tell me a lot about who Pete Bavacqua is.
My biggest fear that comes to mind with this, and I brought this up in a show a couple weeks ago, is that time heals all wounds. And I am concerned that now that the drama of the playoff is over and Notre Dame has accepted the fact that they're not playing in it, and the ACC social media campaign to slander Notre Dame was weeks ago, it's my fear. From Dirtbag Jake, what will be your early indicators that the light has clicked for Cam Williams and will break out this season?
We'll start to see him really making plays in the spring. We'll start to see him. He'll be a guy that's constantly getting talked about in the spring. If he doesn't start to do things in the spring, I don't know that he'll get a chance to do things in the fall. I think these next 5 months are huge for Cam Williams' future at Notre Dame. And yeah, I think we'll start to hear things. We'll start to hear things coming in for spring practice, and we'll see things. We'll be like, oh, Cam's out there with the ones, and look at him out there making plays, and he just beat Benjamin Morrison. He just beat Christian Gray. You know what I mean? Like, it'll be stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. Another one from Dirtbag Jake. Out of the incoming freshmen, whose early enrollment will benefit the most?
I would say there's really 5 that stand out to me. Getting and some of them are pairs. Getting Kari Adams and Joey O'Brien in early and into the strength program and the nutrition program is big. I think getting Kadon Finley in early as an early enrollee and helping him get in the strength program and get into the system is big. I think getting Tiki Hole and Elijah Golden into the program is big. They're a pair. I think getting the 2 edge players into the strength program and the conditioning program, the nutrition program, and for Rodney Dunham with the Notre Dame medical team, I think is going to be big. And I think the 2 backs, I think, are going to be big as well. I think those are probably the ones that I look at the most and say Bingen, and you could probably throw Aiden Pouncey into that conversation as well with the DBs. I mean, I think all those guys have a chance to someone from that group. And the reason I go pairs is like they're not both going to necessarily play, but one of those 2, one of the 2 backs might play. One of the 3 big-time DBs might play, maybe 2. One of the 2 D tackles, maybe one of the 2 ends might play. But those are the guys that I have my first eye on when it comes to making an impact.
Yeah, the only other person that I'd mention on that list is probably Preston Frizzell. Like, I know Ian Premer's not an early enrollee, and he could benefit from getting in the weight room and the nutrition program and the tight end room. The state of it right now is a little uncertain, so I could see him benefiting from that as well.
Yeah, agree.
From Muhammad Abdi, Brian, do you think the upcoming season is critical for Notre Dame recruiting momentum to maintain a top 3 class in 2027 and not fall to top 10 to 15 classes like the BK era?
Big time. Yes, absolutely, absolutely true. You've got to have you've got to be a legit 11-1 or better team next year. Be a playoff team again for you to consider, for people to buy that you're a legit team. If you look at 4 years, 23, 24, 25, and 26 seasons, and you were only a playoff team in one of those 4 years, that 1 year you in the playoffs, that's the anomaly.
Agreed.
So, yes, I think this year is huge. If Notre Dame's a playoff team, if Notre Dame's a top 5 team this year, which I think that they can be, then I think you say, okay, this is who they are now. Because the base you say is like outside of 2 weeks, they played like a top 5 team in 2024-5, but it means you avoid those things next year. I think that would be big. That would be absolutely big. And then here's the last one, Trev.
From Bobby S., how would you feel if we went into next year with the 6-man rotation at wide receiver of Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, Jaden Greathouse, Elijah Burris, Jordan Faison, KK Smith?
I'd feel very good about that. I mean, I personally would still go after Nick Marsh. I've said this before. I'd be fine going after KJ Duff. But if, let's just say hypothetically, you don't get either one of those guys, and it's like, well, guess you got to coach up Cam Williams and Micah Gilbert. Okay, cool. The only thing I would say is I think that they're going to have a hard time keeping Kadon Finley off the field next year. I truly believe that. If they don't go to the portal. So I'd say maybe he makes a fact. But if this is your 6 next year and that's your rotation and all these guys are playing, I feel very good about the receiving core, because that means Cam stepped up and he's helping you. It means he's ready to play. You know, we know that Greathouse and Faison are going to be very good. So, you know, I'm into it. I'm into it. I absolutely think that, you know, give me Cam Williams in the boundary and he's finally coached up and he's putting in the work on his own. I mean, look, we can sit there and say Mike Williams has to do a better job coaching up Cam Williams, and that's 100,000% true. But Cam Williams also has to kind of step up his work ethic, his game as well, and be more forceful. But you give me Cam Williams in the boundary, you give me Jaden Greathouse in the slot, Jordan Faison onto the field, and then Micah Gilbert, Elijah Burris, and KK Smith or Kadon Finley working into the rotation. I feel very good about that wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Very good.
I do too. That would be a very, very good rotation. Very good.
Well, that'll do it. Trev, take us out of here, man.
Folks, that is going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Sean Davis and I will be back on Monday with some more content. And then obviously Christmas is next week. I know some people like to travel weekend before Christmas. So if you are traveling, safe travels to everybody on your way out of here. Be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell, share this podcast with your friends and family, anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But as always, especially now that it's the offseason, the holidays are coming up, the best way to stay in tune with everything going on Notre Dame football is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown podcast.